On this Terrors of Tubi episode, we discuss the horror movie Jane Doe and reveal the secrets playing out in plain sight that everyone missed. Whether you love or hate this film, there is a lot more happening underneath the surface, and we highly recommend hopping on Tubi for another rewatch. Listen in as we break down this 2016 film and discuss the genius tricks its director is playing on you, the awful end of 2016 release that sealed its fate, unfortunately, and why 2016 was a banger year for horror in general. So sit back, relax, and listen in as we discuss the horror movie Jane Doe.
Calling all scream queens, gore hounds, video nasties, and final girls. Turn up the lights and turn on the horror as we explore Tubi's frightening video vaults with the Terrors of Tubi podcast. No one is safe as we hit horror history, commentary, and more with your hosts, the Terror Squad.
Right?
Okay, well, I don't get that.
Well, all of us pulling up the movie to check the first thing.
To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a podcast, only a podcast, only a podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Terrors of Tubi podcast. This is your excited team ready to talk about the Autopsy of Jane Doe. I am Ryan.
I'm Joe.
I'm Laura.
And I am DT.
And we are here to talk about a movie that came out actually fairly recently compared to some of the other movies we've talked about, and has made quite the impact already, I think, in the short amount of time that it's been around. The Autopsy of Jane Doe was made in 2016, just like a previous film we'd actually talked about, The Love Witch, which also came out in the same year. And I would argue that 2016 was actually kind of a big year for horror movies, and we can talk about that later too, because that actually played into my initial reaction of this movie when it first came out. But let's get into it. Like, how did everyone feel about watching this movie?
So when I first saw the movie maybe a couple of years ago. It was spoiled for me.
No.
Yeah, it was spoiled for me. But it was still a very enjoyable movie. So I kind of knew what to expect, and I've seen it like several times since. But even with all the spoilers, it still was a really good movie.
Okay, let's just let the audience know right now that we're going to be talking about spoilers and everything else, because I am actually really curious about like what exactly was spoiled for you. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, stop now. And if you have seen the movie and you're curious to see what they were talking about with DT, keep going. Go ahead, DT.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, like the you know, like from what we see with the opening scene, but I'll let you get into that later. You know, you don't know what to expect. All you see is just like this cadaver of this beautiful woman that's buried. And all of a sudden they go in to do an autopsy of her, hence Autopsy of Jane Doe. So anyway, for me, when I first started watching the movie, Zach Lehner and Mike, the other founders of Block of Horror, were talking about the movie during a founder meeting. And they mentioned that, oh yeah, like the whole time she was a witch. And, you know, and that's like literally like the big reveal, right? Like when like the father and son are talking about like she's trying to hide something. She doesn't want us to know what's really going on. That's like the big reveal at the end.
That was part of the whole marketing campaign too. Remember hashtag who is Jane Doe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah, she was a witch. And I'm just like, well, thanks, guys. I haven't seen the fucking movie yet.
Has anybody else had any other like huge horror twist spoiled for them? Like, I remember when The Sixth Sense came out. I was too young to go see it in the theater, but you know, everybody has that one friend who gets to watch everything and go see everything. So in our case, it was this kid named Colin, and we went. You know, so he got to go see it with an older sibling, and then we were all out on a field trip, and we're like, Colin, tell us about this movie, you know, because it's like the big, you know, like cultural moment. And he's like, okay, so there's this guy, and you have to know he's already dead. And we're like, okay. And then I didn't see it until years later, and I was like, oh my God, like that, Colin. So still 20 years later, I have not forgiven him.
The Sixth Sense was
Maybe
also
one
ruined
day.
for me as well.
Yeah.
That and Lost. Yeah.
Oh, Lost.
No, we need to get better friends or social circles.
I think someone told me the twist in Saw, if I remember correctly, but I also don't think I've ever seen Saw, so I don't really care.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I don't think I have.
That's
the
interesting.
first one is good.
First one is good.
Really good.
Yeah, I know. That's what.
I had like a physiological response at the end of that.
He knows what
Yeah, I
happened.
know.
that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. I mean, I just haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason.
I'm trying to think if I've ever had something spoiled for me, and I don't.
Oh, I have one.
I might be that guy who spoils movies.
You had Santa Claus spoiled for you when you were in second grade, because I remember you storming home very upset about it.
That's true. I got in a fight on the playground. That's what happened there. Yeah, I got in a fight. Well, and then I mean, look, this isn't horror movie related technically, but like if you really want to get into this, yes, I did. I got in a fight on the playground because these kids said Santa Claus was not real, and I said my parents would never lie to me. And then we got in a physical altercation. I went home. And I was very upset, and I told my mom, and my parents both laughed because they thought it was hilarious. And then they told me the truth. And then I got even more angry because I had put my name on the line. I defended my parents to the death. So then I marched into my brothers and sisters' room, and I said, hey, we need to talk. And my little second grade self broke the news to my brother and sister. And naturally, Joe was like, yep, I knew it all along. My sister
I gave
cried.
him a hug. I said, of course he isn't real, Ryan.
And then for about a week in our house,
I was
there was
like
a mutiny.
4. I didn't understand. Or
It was all
5,
3
whatever.
children against our parents for like 7 days.
Yeah, Ryan
Yeah.
turned us.
Well, I would make the argument that is existential horror at its
Yeah,
scariest.
that's true.
Like world
That's true.
upheaval.
Sorry,
world
we're
was-
just going
That's
through
gotta give you at
spoilers, and
least,
that's the one that sticks out for me for forever. It's just Ryan being so mad and coming in and being like, "Mom and Dad are liars." And I was like, "Of course they are." Like 4 years old, I know. All right, back to the movie.
Back to the movie.
I'm
Yes.
trying to think. I first saw it in theaters with you, Ryan.
Right.
And we actually went and saw it, and Emil Hirsch was actually there as like a special guest, which was funny. He was interesting, but
I mean, not to sully his reputation, but he was high as a kite.
yeah, he nothing
What?
crazy, but definitely smoked some weed beforehand.
He was having a good time. He was having a good time. He was
Yeah,
not
yeah.
behaving
Los
badly.
Angeles.
He was
No.
just, you know,
Absolutely.
having a
No,
good time.
super nice guy. You could just tell he was stoned. That's all. He was a little out of it.
That was, and we were talking about this just before we started recording. That was that movie theater's sort of reputation too, right? Because I remember going to other movies there, and talent and crew would show up pretty effed up, having a good time too. But I can't remember the name of it for the life of me.
Did they get caught up in the Me Too movement or what? I
Oh,
can't-
they were, yeah.
Yeah,
One
that's
of
what I
the
thought.
founders
This was
on the
even maybe
board.
pre-Me
It was pre-Me
Too.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got an email.
Hey, was it Cine Family?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
good
right. It was
job.
Cinephilia.
Yeah.
Good job, Joe.
Okay, so back to the movie. So first time I saw it, like I thought it was good. I wasn't blown away by it or anything like that, but I thought it was like a fun horror movie.
So
and
I had
then-
a similar reaction, and I kind of have a reason. Well, I guess I can just get into this now, really.
Yeah, go.
This movie came out at the end of 2016. Do you remember the movies that came out in 2016?
Nope.
2016 was like kind of a big year for horror, if you think about it. There was The Conjuring 2 came out that year, which Conjuring 2, story-wise, was, but they
Yeah,
had
a
the
little
nun
underwhelming.
character, and the nun character
Yeah.
kind of like made waves, right? There was Lights Out,
That was a good one.
the feature by David
Oh,
F. Sandberg. That was his
yeah.
first movie out of the gate, and that was fantastic.
Yeah.
There was
Little baby.
Ouija, Origin of Evil, which blew my mind because it was such a fantastic
so
sequel. Yeah, it was
good.
so good. So good. I did not expect that
Had
at
no
all.
business being as good as it was.
Right? Don't Breathe came out that year. The Wailing also came out that year. So even our international horror was crazy. Train to Busan, Under the Shadow. So we were just getting hit over the head with fantastic horror all year long. And then this movie got dumped at the end of December. And I genuinely do mean dumped, because the problem is this movie actually hit digital rentals like a week before it was released. So they were like, oh, you can get it on VOD or whatever. And then they released it theatrically. And like, it was just
Yeah, its
totally
box
screw up
office
the
was
release.
only like $4 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
I 100% buy that, because I tend to think of myself as someone who has their finger on the pulse for horror that's up and coming, and I missed this one.
Right.
I ended up just stumbling across it on whatever streaming service it was on at the time, years later.
Yeah.
And ended up loving it. Like I was in from my first watch, but when it came out, I completely missed it. I wonder if that would have happened, because like Brian Cox has been an established actor forever, but I feel like he really came into the public consciousness in a big way, in America anyway, during Succession.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, had he headlined this movie then, or I believe that originally it was going to be Martin Sheen in that role. Yeah. That like how that may have affected things. Maybe not, but just like you said, it's a stacked year, so who knows?
It's crazy.
Well, should we do ratings? What everyone
yeah, let's do ratings.
ratings?
Who wants to do their first rating? Or you want me to
go
start?
first.
I can start.
Yep,
All right.
start it off.
I would say so. I actually like this. I think better as an individual watch than a party watch. Actually, so I would give this. An 8 as an individual watch, and then I would probably give it like a maybe. I don't know. This is tough. Maybe like a 7 as a group watch. Actually. Yeah. And the reason for this is because I think the movie is not as fast paced for a group watch. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely great elements to a horror movie in this movie. But I think when you've got, I'm imagining like a group of like 5 or more people sitting down to watch this movie, and then they've kind of got to get through like a slower beginning, right? And don't get me wrong, it's like fantastic. But again, it's like trying to get a group to like settle down, put their phones down, focus, stop talking to each other, and just watch the movie is like not an easy one, right? Like you really like for a group watch, you kind of need like a big explosion. And I guess this crime scene kind of does, but the crime scene really opens up with a slower investigation too. And I don't think that would grip a whole group's sort of attention span. So I prefer this as an individual watch more than a group watch.
Great. It's a detail-oriented movie, so
Yes.
not only is it trying to get everyone to settle down, but it's like having to pause it every 3 seconds. Like, wait, who's that? Wait, oh my gosh, that was the sound cue. What did I
Right.
miss? And just I think that's a lot of heavy lifting for the one person paying attention.
Who wants to go next?
Agree.
ET.
I'll take a stab at it.
Do it, TT.
So I just want to give this kind of disclaimer first. I really enjoyed the movie. Even with the spoiler, and I'm so mad that it was spoiled for me because I think I would have enjoyed it more. But as an individual watch, I would probably honestly give it a 9 for an individual watch as well as a group watch, depending on the group. Because I think with this particular movie, there wasn't I think the horror of it, like the terrifying scenes, were just there's a lot of scary moments, right? Because you would see a monster, or they'll have the camera angle one way and then all of a sudden they'll shift it and there's somebody there, but you never actually saw the monsters. And so I think depending on what kind of group you have, a lot of my friends, they don't like horror like I do.
Yeah.
Right. So for individual group watch, I would for sure give it 9 across the board, and I'll kind of get into that later. But I've seen this movie 6 times, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah.
You're like Laura.
Oh, you've seen it 6 times as well, Laura.
Yeah, Ryan and I were. Ryan and I were talking off mic. Honestly, I don't know how many times I've probably sat down and watched it, beginning to end. Probably 4 or 5, something like that. But I have it on in the background a lot because, single location.
Right.
Once you know what's going on, it's fairly easy to follow. I think the performances are great, which we'll talk about, obviously. But yeah, this is a frequent watch of mine. And I would say for me, I'm just really stingy when you get above, a certain star. So to be taken with a grain of salt, but I'd probably give it a 7.5. And, but if we're factoring in rewatchability, because I also don't think that it is definitely a singular experience when you're watching it the first time and don't know the twist, but it is one that holds up to scrutiny.
That's true.
I think, when you're watching it subsequent times, and is still good enough, and there's enough going on, and the performances are compelling enough that you can rewatch it. So with all of that, I would say somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8.
You guys bring up a really good
I
point.
am a
This
fan
is
of this
one of those movies that you can rewatch over and over again. You can definitely play this in the background, or you can just sit down and watch it again. It's super easy to slip into and slip out and then come right back to. Once you've seen it, you have to definitely sit through it the whole time the first time. But then after that, yeah, you're right. You can come in and out, and
100%.
that's really what's kind of great about it. Is actually it's so nice like that.
Yep. Well, I'm going to give a nuanced rating here. I'm going to go 7 on the individual, 7 on the group watch, but I'm going to give it an 8 or an 8.5 if it was a date night one. Because I think as a couple, I think there's I think that's a good one to really watch this, where there's enough going on with the slow parts and then also with the tension. But for a group watch and individual watch, I think 7.
Wait, hold on. Did your fiance watch this with you?
It's a bold choice.
I
How
know
the date
that's
goes.
exactly what I was thinking.
I haven't had to worry about that as much for the last 5 years, but yeah. So Nina did watch this one with me, but she was at her parents, so we actually just like streamed it at the same time, and like we're just kind of like talking about it on the phone as we watched it. So
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
yeah, so a little bit of a different.
That works too.
That's a
Yeah.
bold date move, Joe.
I mean, not when it's your fiance and you've been together for over 5 years, right?
No, that's true. But it's like, I mean, like, when would you bring this movie out? Like, after how many dates with a single person?
I don't know. I'm super
Like, it's
awkward.
not a first date night.
Yeah, no, it's not a first date, but I'm super awkward with that stuff anyway. If you ask Nina, so like, I probably would like. You should not take dating advice from me, people listening. Definitely not a first date. I'm stupid, so I probably would have done like second or third date. But
definitely not a first date. But yeah.
I mean,
You gotta come in with that caveat.
when Nina and I
like,
first started
oh, sorry,
dating,
go
we
ahead.
both knew the other person liked horror movies. So I could see myself being bold
okay.
and being like, maybe like a second or third date Autopsy of Jane Doe. I don't know. Why not?
You just got to come in with a disclaimer, like, listen, just because this date goes this way in the movie, like, hopefully,
Yeah, but
we're not
when we
looking
get
at a
there, I have
repeat.
questions about that because I don't think she actually died. So
Okay.
I also I would confirm they like horror
Whoa,
movies too.
okay.
I mean, because this is like, it's
Yes.
not just any old horror movie.
yeah,
so
know your
it is part of
audience
that.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, if you're already this far into the podcast, either you don't mind spoilers or you've already seen it, right? So
Yeah.
you should know. You should know.
And
I
I
take
mean,
no
and then-
personal responsibility if you take my dating advice.
It's also
And
it's also in the title. It's about an autopsy.
That's true.
You get what you pay
That's a good
for.
point.
I was also going to bring up
Oh.
like one of the also more obvious ones where it's just like there's a naked woman through the entire movie, Joseph.
Okay, we're all adults here. Like, really? That's gonna be the
Right.
part that like throws you off? Are you like
but I'm
checking
just
to
saying,
see
like,
if your date's
that's a risky
like,
move, and it's like,
Are you like
Well, yeah. I
Well, okay.
setting,
we'll
like,
talk
weird
about
expectations?
That, but
I
it's
don't-
not like sexualized.
yeah,
It's not.
at all?
It's not.
Like,
Yeah.
that didn't even
But it
like
does-
cross my mind.
But it is an interesting conversation piece because like, let's face it, like there's a naked person in the naked woman in the entire movie, and you do like, I personally found myself tracking whether it was like filming her with a male gaze or not, or whether it was like truly coming at her from an objective view. You know what I mean? Like, definitely felt that sort of like, I kind of like, set up on my haunches a little bit, like preparing myself for like, I don't know, the director doing something kind of sleazy. And to be honest, I never felt like it was, honestly.
No, I think the director made a very
100%
conscious.
that
No,
was
go
the-
ahead, Laura.
No. You go ahead, and then I'll pontificate.
I'll just interject real quick. And I felt like that was a very, very much a conscious choice by the director because, like, the dad is, definitely a craftsman. He takes his job very seriously, and so I felt like he had a very objective view when like, doing this whole autopsy. But like with the son, like, when he became uncomfortable, like when the dad is basically, I won't get into it, but we'll get into it later. When the dad is basically, doing the swab part, the son is staring away, So I felt like the director wanted to make it very much a conscious choice of not sexualizing this whole experience, So
Agree. Even if so, within the diegesis of the movie, right? Like, we're not feeling male gazy, but even like in the audience, it sort of dares you to do that because the more intimate we get with her body, people are actively punished, right, for like getting closer, getting intimate. And it's sort of like looking at, okay, you want to talk about objectification? Here is literally a woman as an object. Does that still turn you on? You know what I mean? So I think that is also something, and I would worry about it in a film directed by a man, written by men, starring men. Like, so I am actually very happy with how they handled that, although there are a couple things that we can talk about later, but overall I agree that is that is definitely handled. So
I think there was only one instance where it became a little creepy, and I'll read you some of like kind of the theories and the reviews on this particular movie, and it was at the very end when he's asking her to basically make the deal and how he like kind of goes on top of her. Right, like it comes off very, very, very creepy, and I guess we can talk about more about that, Ryan, once you go through the movie.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Because I have a theory. I have a theory about it, but yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into it then. I want to hear this stuff.
Series.
Yeah.
We're like, well, let's
No,
talk about
that's
it. Let's
great.
go.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay, so then let's fill people in on the logline of this movie, or like at least present our own loglines of this movie. I can start, or someone can start. Anyone want to go first?
I vote DT. He's seen it 6 times.
Oh,
my
yeah, that's a good
God.
one.
I'm
Go, DT.
so bad
Yes.
with long lines. Please don't put me on the
We'll
spot.
we'll swoop in and help you out. Try it.
Oh my God. Okay, I was literally saying, I hope I don't get the long line today. I hope I don't get the long line today. All right. 2 morticians.
You're off to a good start.
Oh yes, I know. Oh my gosh, you guys put me on the spot. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous now. 2 morticians. Actually, let me pull up my notes. I'll go second.
Well, then I
Okay.
guess I'll go. How about a father and son mortician
Father,
team? Ooh. Receive a mysterious Jane Doe and must solve the
Circumstances of her death.
Thank you. Circumstances of her death. Before,
you gotta end-
before they're trapped in their own autopsy room forever. I don't know. That was bad. I lost the ball there.
Right, something like no. I think everybody's on the right track, right? And there is a clock given in the film, so like father and son medical examiners or
Right.
coroners or whatever are given a late night delivery of
Cool.
A mysterious Jane Doe. But then it's got to be something for the poster of like. But, some things like this Jane Doe may have been better left alone, or like left unknown or, something with like the ... But
Yeah.
the more you find out about her, the worse time you're going to have, essentially. So please.
Some murders are meant to be unsolved.
Wait, DT, do you have a
Oh,
follow-up?
yeah. Oh, sorry. Wait,
No,
DT,
no,
did you
no,
come
I was-
save the
I
day?
was-
Help.
No,
Save it.
I thought you guys did very well. I love the ... at the end. I thought that was a beautiful cherry on top, Laura. Thank you for that. No, but what I was going to say is like I think they
Oh,
even-
thank you.
when they start to actually cut into Jane Doe, the radio basically starts to foreshadow like, hey, this is something that you don't want to get into. And then as they begin to cut, it was like, you're never going to leave here.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
She said no.
She said no.
She said no.
She said no.
She said,
She said no. Wait, so what is our final log?
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
the alternate poster.
she
said
no.
It's actually fantastic. Which, by the way, real quick, because I like to talk about the thumbnail. The thumbnail for this movie is actually really good.
What does it look like, Ryan?
Oh, sorry. It is our obviously famous titular character, Jane Doe, upside down with her eyes wide open. And depending, does she have the blood coming out of her nose in this one? I think she does, right? She's a little bit of blood.
Yes, she does.
She's got a little bit of blood in the thumbnail.
I'm looking at
it's
it
like,
right now. Yes.
It was a little too small, but like it stood out from everything else because when you search this on Tubi, it's just there are actually like 3 autopsy shows, and then Autopsy of Jane Doe, and then below that, if you just like multiple alien autopsy movies,
Oh my God.
which we should definitely do a review of. There's so many alien autopsy movies.
Yeah.
A good movie for us later in the future would be Fire in the Sky, because that terrified me as a kid.
Oh.
That literally gave me nightmares.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
That'd be a good. That's an old '90s one. Yeah, so maybe we do that later. I think if it's on
Ooh,
Tubi,
yeah,
I don't know.
that'd
If
be
it
a
is.
blind watch.
I was
for me.
going to say, I don't know if that one's on there.
Yeah, I have to check.
Actually, I'm thinking of Dark Sky.
Oh yeah, Dark Skies. Yeah, that can. I
Dark Skies.
didn't see Dark Skies actually, but I did. Yeah,
It was
Fire in the Sky.
pretty good.
Terrified.
All right, task on hand.
All right,
Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Anyway,
Okay.
the Autopsy of Jane Doe.
How do we
Yes.
open up, everyone?
We open up on the credits over dirt, which I think is really kind of interesting because I gotta say, the way it's done actually reminded me of a shot from a movie I just recently watched, which was Talk to Me. And I don't know who here has seen Talk to Me, but there's actually a shot of the
Yes.
trees waving in the wind. Well, Laura and I saw it together. But I mean, and Joe, I think you actually have seen it because you
Yeah, I
told
saw
me.
it this weekend. Yeah.
And DT, I don't know if you saw it, but like, you remember there's like a shot of the trees in the wind blowing, and it's very much like just like a single light in the trees in that movie. And this felt the same way. There's just like the dirt kind of blowing with like a high contrast light, kind of like what's it called?
So I just want to add one thing, Ryan. So
Scraping
is it dirt or is it peat?
Ooh, excuse me. Yes, it might be peat,
Yes.
actually. You're right. That's a very good point. Very good
Yeah,
point.
which definitely gives a lot of context, even in the very beginning.
That's so true. That is so true. Okay, so then we cut from that, and then we go into basically this house in Virginia, right? Which it does a little bit of a time jump, right? Because we open up on the house with the construction on the driveway, and then we cut to the mug and the unsmoked cigarette, or the, you know, whatever cigarette in the backyard. And then we start cutting through the house with the coroner, the investigation of the murder inside, right? And all of these random things that have happened inside the house.
We should note this is a beautiful, on the outside, white and tidy house
Yes,
with nary
I
a mark.
noticed,
And
yes.
inside it's all spooky and gross.
Blood splatter
Stay out.
everywhere.
Is that foreshadowing?
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
What?
I would say the bigger foreshadow is when they very on the nose say it looks like these people are trying to get out.
Listen. But this is like a serious, this is like so many people got murdered. It's like everywhere, you know, it just keeps going and you think you've seen all of it and they're like, no, let's go upstairs. Let's go do all that. But yes, to your point, like, yes. Did someone write in blood, this is a witch, you better get out? Like, you know.
One of the things I do like about this movie is it's not subtle. Like I feel like there's not a lot of like underlying, like, should we read more into this? I mean, for the most part, it's a pretty linear, fun horror movie with good scares and a good story, which I kind of appreciate, you know, because sometimes you just want, it's not mindless by any means at all. Like you definitely like, you know, but there isn't anything overly cerebral about it either. And for me, that's like a fun horror movie, you know, you don't have to like read into it, like, you know.
Yeah, you're along for the ride, you know?
Yes.
And they're just dropping breadcrombs.
It knows what it is.
Exactly.
It knows what it is.
Yeah. It's like the John Wick of horror movies, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. It's like, you don't have to read into John Wick.
Yeah.
They kill his dog, he goes on revenge. This is kind of the same idea. You know what I mean?
And yet, where would we be if we can't at all? So gotta reserve that little bit. I'm gonna dig my talons in and never let go. Anyways.
Okay, so they're investigating, and we have two old people who have passed away. Brutally, blood's everywhere. And then our sheriff character, Sheriff Burke, goes upstairs. He's looking at a guy who has been shot as well. And he's checking out bullet holes, and he looks outside and the news arrives. And then he gets called to the basement. He goes to the basement, and we find a porcelain skinned naked woman buried in the dirt, which is when his deputy comes up and says, yeah, no relation to the victims and no marks on the outside. Looks like they were trying to escape, basically. Yeah. Which sets up our whole movie, basically. Mm-hmm. And so he rushes. This is so funny because there's 3 people dead upstairs, but he rushes this one person from the basement to the coroner's office for investigation.
Yeah.
To be fair to good old Sheriff Burke, the other folks, it's pretty clear their outsides or their insides are on the outside. That's not supposed to be there. Versus, like, you got this woman where you're like, she looks fine.
Well,
so
what's
up with that? So, you know, we could give him a little latitude.
Well,
but
he even mentions to them that, like, he needs it by the morning because he doesn't really have answers. Like, everyone, like, you can kind of, like, you know, put together a cause of death, but with this particular person, there was nothing.
And they know who. I was just gonna. They know who everyone else is too. Like this is
exactly.
She's Jane Doe, so they're also trying to figure that out too.
Well, and we're also, I mean, as we said, this is a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. Knows what it is. So like, that's part of the buy-in, right? Where you're like, okay, you're gonna hand wave a reason of like, okay, we have to look at her and we have to look at her tonight. People can't leave when it starts getting spooky.
Right.
So you know, I'm on board for that. This is the sort of movie where I'm willing to give whatever latitude they want because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, accept the rules of the story, and those are the rules. Like that's just like that's the world we're living in.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say, I wonder if they were like specialists in what they did because the like literally the first body when we meet these characters, the first body you're looking at is like there might have been another way this person died, not just by the fire. right? And so they were going into that. But he mentions that, like, we're not here to solve the case. We just want to know the cause of death. That's it.
And
Yeah.
the
So,
dad,
like,
I was just going to say,
that's
the
like a
dad is
thesis
the county coroner, unless I'm mistaken. Like, I thought that was so.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I think he is. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that
Okay.
that's kind of his jam.
Okay, gotcha.
I kind of think, though, that what DT was saying earlier about where it's like, I wrote down that line too, the leave the why to cops and shrinks. I feel like is basically the thesis statement of this movie. Like, don't worry about it. You know, the sort of like, and if I were to bring in any film theory, I would point to Susan Sontag and Against Interpretation, which is basically what it sounds like. Where like, you know, we want to like sit there and be preoccupied with it, but it's like, just let the experience happen, be in the moment, just don't think too much about it. And that's the first and last theory I'm going to bring into this one. You're welcome, guys.
No, but that's a great point, because I mean, that very much is how the coroner, Tommy, wants, you know, he's teaching his son Austin, right? And like, that's very much what he like. That's his biggest message is we're not detectives. We're not here to find out why that person got shot in the head. It's was the bullet the cause of death? That's just an example for the audience. That's not what happened here. But like, that's the message he's trying to teach him is we only go as far as what happened to the body, not who caused the injury or anything like that. Like, that has nothing to do with us. So
I have one little thing I would like to add here, and it's actually more of a question. Would it be scarier if, because we know in the movie, later in the movie, and I'm jumping ahead, I'm sorry, but later in the movie, the corpses that are already in there come to life. Would it have been scarier if they brought everyone from this crime scene there, and then the old people and the handyman come to life?
Ooh.
Like, would that have been scarier maybe?
Okay, so I buy that version. For me, I kind of like that it is other folks, because to me it speaks to the power of what she can do, where it's not limited to just the one place, but that like she's reaching across, and even folks that she hadn't affected before get like sort of brought in. But I hear what you're saying as well. It's just, you know, I think a different version, but I'm open to other ideas.
I think it depends on. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, DT.
No. I think that's a very interesting take, Laura. Like, you know, speaking of her power, and I think it's something that we really start to see, especially towards the end, because like, well, I don't want to. I want to jump ahead so bad, right? I'm not going to jump ahead. I'm going to try to stay in place, but
Ryan can just put things in order.
We're gonna shelve it, but I'm gonna bring it back later on.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'll move this along.
Real quick, though,
ahead.
I do just want to say it depends on how they use that as a device in the story, though, because if that's if that's a red herring to confuse the audience as to like, you know, the power of Jane Doe versus maybe something else is going on, then I'm there for it, and I think maybe that could be creepy. But if it's just the straight, oh, she's making them come back to life because it's her, then I'm not as interested. But if it's a red herring, I think it could be cool.
Ryan, since you pitched the question, I feel like you've got a
no. So I mean, to me, I think it would be scarier, but it's only because I've seen them brutally like left for dead, right? And now then to all of a sudden have them come back to life and start creeping the hall. It's like, I don't know, something to me just is like, there's something more to that where it's like, oh, their souls are forever damned and they're in control of this woman. Whereas like in the other one, we're sort of introduced to the other folks kind of not randomly, because they're the first scene we get is them working on this guy, which DT mentioned, like they knew their shit, right? That the father's teaching the son what to look for and he's teaching them to, stick to the facts and yada yada. But there's just something about like, I don't know, there's just something more creepy where it's like, oh, they were dead and now they're back and they're kind of on her side. You know what I mean? Like I would think that would be more creepy. Maybe not though. I don't know. Again, I'm not like, it was just something I was thinking about. And it's because this movie is an easy watch. It's like your mind can wander sometimes. Go, what would I do here? You know what I mean?
All right.
Right. Well, and it's such a tight movie, right?
True.
There's places that you're like, okay, if I had another 10 minutes, maybe I'd do this. Not that I think it needs it, but
right, exactly.
Yeah,
anyway.
Total run time's only like 99 minutes, I think.
Which is great too.
Yeah.
beautiful. We love to see it.
More of that, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go from the investigation scene of solving this grisly murder to our two coroners, a father and son, Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch, working in their family moratorium. looking for the cause of death on a gentleman who has been in a fire. And the dad's kind of testing his son, kind of figuring out what he sees and everything else. And then they go to wash their hands and he goes, okay, what was the cause of death? And the son picks out smoke inhalation. And then sure enough, Brian Cox says, well, there's more to it. And he shows him the little fracture in the back of his head and says, everyone's got their secret. I can't remember the exact line. It's something like everyone's got their secret.
Some just hide it better than
Thank you,
others.
Lord.
Dun, dun, dun.
You got my back on that one. Thank you.
I got you. Oh yeah.
So then they start cleaning up. The dad goes outside, smokes a cigarette.
Well, I appreciate that. So the criticism that and I, in my notes, I just called them Brian and Emil because I think their names get mentioned like once. It's Tommy and Austin.
Yeah.
For the record, Brian is Tommy, Emil's Austin, but Brian and Emil that they have like a pretty healthy relationship, and this sort of Socratic like guiding his son through this process still to me feels very loving, and there's like a gentle color to it. Like this is not Logan Roy.
No.
Right? With his kid. There's like a softness and like the fact that we take the time, and it's slow, even given that it's 90 minutes, that this beginning is sort of slow to establish that even though there are complications with the relationship, which we will talk about, that it is a loving one. And so there are inherent stakes there, and it's not gonna like descend into like, well, why'd you blah, 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 that you want them to be okay because they love each other. At least I did. Okay, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
that's true. That's great. And that, look, that also speaks to the power of the script, right? And the script, was a blacklist script, and it was, sought after very much. And the director of this movie, too, we should point out, this was like his second movie. His first movie was Troll Hunter.
And his first English
This was his first English language movie, yeah.
think.
So this was kind of like his breakthrough into that sort of world. And I think it was a really strong choice for him to do that. And so I think he made a pretty good professional move, I think, honestly. Going with something a little small, but like scary. And like
There's an
character-driven.
intimacy to it, though, to your point.
And which is nice. You don't usually see people trying to swing for the fences sometimes. The one thing
Smoke
one thing I
break.
forgot also, actually, sorry, because I was trying to push the plot along, but like we have to take note because after the investigation scene, they do a ton of pans introducing you to the mortuary, and like you got to give props to the production design on that, because the production design is really good on this set for a single location. Like they did a really good job building this out, and because it's like a multi-generational business, they do a good job of sort of showing you the place. And I read an article about the production designer like really putting emphasis on like showing the generations that have like added on to it, right? So it's like starting sort of like in like an older decade and then moving on to like the 80s and the 60s are all kind of mixed in there, and so you kind of get pieces of every decade in there going all the way.
It's that really I given that it's such a tight 90, it's such a nice way to do that exposition, so you already have from that couple seconds of a pan like, okay, this is a family business. They've been doing this forever. Like the wood paneling is all nice and warm. And in fact, like we'll get into this as well, but when Brian Cox right after this goes out to take his smoke break and it's all desaturated and gray, like inside the crematorium and moratorium where usually you would see it shot, I feel like in blues and sterile and whatever. It's warm tones. It's orange and brown and like wood paneling, so it feels homey, and like that's because that's where their family is. Like that's where they're vibrant. That's where they exist together. So I think that's also again to speak to that production design and lighting design.
And they get really creative with shots in the
strong
beginning
choices
too. There's a lot of like shooting through objects, and well, even like for instance, right after the smoke break, Emil Hirsch's girlfriend character arrives. I forget her name. I feel terrible.
Emily.
Emily, thank you. Emily shows up, and that's like kind of like our first official scare, right? They kind of creep you out with like the cat showing up with a rat, and then he goes to investigate some noises, and she pops up behind him. But she wants to see what they do for work, and so then he takes her, or she goes into their little room where they open up cadavers and everything else, and she wants to see. And the whole scene is shot really cool because they're shooting through like the microscopes and they're shooting through tools, and there's there's just a lot of coverage in the scene that's like not your typical just like full face coverage or like a typical wide shot coverage. It's really creative. It's really well done. The cinematographer did an excellent job, not only just lighting the whole place, but like making sure that everything is very creative and very kind of visually creepy in a way. I don't know. It's off to a great start from the very beginning. So okay. So anyway, so in the scene, so she wants to see some dead bodies, and I'm just gonna keep calling him Emil. I'm gonna screw Tommy and Austin because I will get those names mixed up.
That's fine. Brian and Emil.
Brian and Emil. So Emil, kind of protests, and he's like, "Oh, my dad wouldn't like that." And sure enough, Brian pops up out of nowhere behind him and goes, try me. And so then they open up the first cadaver, and he shows off this woman cadaver whose face has been sewn shut, right? Her eyes and her mouth have been just sewn shut. Excuse me.
Yep.
And I don't know what Emily, I guess, isn't weirded out enough, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
I didn't say
Thank you,
that
next.
one. I meant that one.
I meant that one.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
okay, Emily.
That was a beautiful line read.
So then he opens up the next body, or pulls up the next, little refrigerator.
The drawer.
Yeah. And this one's covered. The face is covered. And it's because that one has a gunshot wound. But the first thing we notice is the bell on the toe. And it rings a little bit, and she asks about the bell. And it's so funny because it's like, no other cadaver has had this, right? It's just this one. And she asks about the bell. She's like, why is there a bell around the toe? And Brian explains that they used to put them on to make sure that the bodies were dead way back in the past. And she's like, well, why are you still doing this? He's like, I'm just a little old fashioned. But he only did it with the one with the big hole in its face.
I know. The one where there's no way that person is still alive. Yeah.
Right. What?
Well, I mean,
Go ahead, Laura. I don't want to dominate this. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Oh, just to be fair, he's
That's
fucking
true,
with her,
yeah.
right? He's like kind of annoyed she's down there, but he's like going to play along. I don't know. I don't really have anything else exciting to add about that. Although I was sort of, God bless Emily, who is played by a woman named Ophelia Lovabond. I was a little distracted by her bad American accent. I'm sorry. To all apologies to Miss Lovabond, but yeah, I just, she's there to do her thing. It's fine. And I'm gonna pass turn because I don't have anything else really to add on.
Okay. Well, go ahead,
I
DT.
guess, no, well, for me, I love that bit of, obviously, like, he has it on one person, and he calls himself a traditionalist. But I love that, I love that use of the bell, because as a horror fan, it's going to be utilized later in the film. Right,
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I get geeked out because I'm just like, okay, I'm excited to see how they're going to utilize this. Right.
Oh, it's a fantastic setup.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't get to see it, but when Ryan started to bring it up, DT looked like Christmas came early this year. He was ready. It was great.
No, but it is. It's a fantastic setup, and it's
I
a
love
great
that
audio
about
cue.
you. It's great.
Yeah, it's a great audio cue.
I know.
Yes.
I did light up a little bit.
No, it's so good. It's so good.
So-
we love to see it.
So she reaches down. They goad her on to take the thing off the face to check out the face, and slowly we creep in for another scare where she's gonna slowly rip this thing off the face, and then the bell dings and gives her a little scare, and that's when everyone laughs and she gets frustrated, and then the next cut is them walking towards the elevator, and she's asking him why he doesn't get creeped out, and he's like, sometimes I do. So they get to the elevator opens, and Burke comes out with Jane Doe in the body bag. We don't see her, but Burke is disturbed, and Burke has a serious face on, a face that Emil has never seen before, and he wants to know where his dad is. Emil points him to where Brian Cox is, and Emil takes the body that way, and then he goes up the elevator with his girlfriend, Emily, and they not argue, but they kind of have a discussion about how he keeps ditching her for his dad, and we get a little bit of backstory too, right? It's been 2 years. So anyone want to take that? What happened 2 years ago?
So 2 years ago, I believe, they mention it. His mother committed suicide. There were signs there. The dad couldn't see it, which he had regret about. And the mother committed suicide. And the son is actually thinking about leaving. He's not wanting to continue with the, familiar business, which I think is a very, very important backstory that sets up this whole world. Because the thing is, and I'm sorry if I'm going to jump ahead. I apologize in advance.
Do it.
Okay, cool. But it sets it all up because the thing is, like, you have this guy, Brian's character, who is so logical and methodical about his whole approach, right? And, he lives with that regret because he is so good at what he does. He's so good at reading into things. And the one thing that he should have been reading into, he wasn't able to, right? And so you kind of see him wrestle with that throughout the whole movie. And I'll kind of get into that once we kind of get more into the end, because that kind of all comes unfolding. But yeah, like, I think they set up a great backstory in terms of just like, this kind of like external struggle of like what's happening in the morgue, but also this internal struggle about what happened 2 years ago.
Well, and to your point, DT, I feel like this piece, and then just as we get to know Brian's character better, we see his Achilles heel, I believe, is that he is so detail oriented that he can focus on the small pieces, but at the expense of the big picture. Yes. He doesn't notice what's happening with his wife. He doesn't notice that his son wants out. He doesn't notice, like, he's finding all these brilliant things as the mystery goes on with Jane's body, but can't put together the final XYZ of what is going on, and like completely will not buy in until the very last minute. Well, so I think to your point, this is a great introduction to that.
And it sets up a great character arc for him, because at the end, it's almost, he sees the bigger picture, right? He does see the bigger picture. Yeah.
Finally, yeah. Well, okay, so we get that mom died a few years ago. And that Emil feels like he's sort of got to stick around for his dad to keep him company and that sort of thing and help him out with the family business. So he sends Emily off running, promises that they will get together later that night. They'll go see a midnight show. She can come by at 11 and pick him up.
Popcorn and candy.
2 drinks? Yeah. Sour Patch.
Oh, yeah, 2 drinks. Yes.
2 drinks, right? Yeah. And then she says maybe if he's lucky or something like that. And she's off and he goes back down. And so then they're down in the basement, Brian and Burke, and they're starting to talk about, the scene, and he's trying to explain what's going on. Stanley hisses, and Brian makes like the side comment, like the damn thing gets, meaner every year. And Stanley runs off. And
Stanley's the cat.
Sorry, Stanley is the cat that we saw earlier, who dropped off a rat and kind of gave us like our first like.
Just important note for the audience. That's
a very good point. I just threw in a random character, Stanley.
I kind of like that better. That's what we're doing in the remake. Like mortuary assistant or something.
Who hisses?
Yeah.
Okay. And so Emil shows up and he talks about, how he would have loved to see the crime scene. And Burke says, there's no time. There's, I got the media hounding me. I gotta deliver answers tomorrow. And so he tells them, you got to give me answers by tomorrow. And sets up our whole movie of being.
He said just like that tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I also just want to highlight that while Emil is being snippy about not getting to look at the crime scene, the fact that he is crushing it on all of these other facts, you get to see that Brian is proud. Like, he's so proud of what he's accomplished, and like I think that compounds the guilt as well, because like Emil's good at what he does. It's a way to bring happiness to his father, who we know is singularly focused on this job. He has seen, we know we're in trouble. It is 2016. The last time he saw a movie in the theater was The Notebook in 2004. So he's I had to look at the dates. You're welcome. But, so yeah, this is the place in which he can please his father and try to connect with him in a place that he can't anywhere else.
That's a really good
point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and also to note, I did see in interviews that they had a real coroner on set, sort of making sure that they knew their stuff and, knew what to investigate and what to look at and what questions to ask. So a lot of the things they're asking are very real and very, sort of real life type of things. And maybe 2 people within this group have seen autopsies before, real ones. Who would those people be? Maybe me and maybe Laura.
Yeah, so
let's do it. Before we get into the autopsy of Jane Doe, let's get into the autopsy with Laura.
So first, I I like it. I want to give DT snaps at the beginning because I do think you're right that there's like a meticulousness that they're doing that at least in the autopsy I witnessed was not the same. And so maybe we can talk about the context of when we saw these. I was 17 when I saw mine. It was in AP biology. We went to the coroner. We witnessed. It was a dude who had, I think, died of a hematoma. He was old or like older, and had, I remember, like, because he was an alcoholic, had like an enlarged liver. But but when they were doing that, and I thought we saw this in the beginning montage more, that like they moved. I don't know about the one that you saw, Ryan. They moved at a clip. It was really fast. It was hard to, and actually, in retrospect, I am glad that it moved so fast because I was trying to keep pace with what they were doing. Like, okay, they're removing the skull. They're going to get into the brain. They're removing this organ. So I didn't have time to think about it. But, and we can talk about this too, but Emil Hirsch also talks about going to witness autopsies for research, and that he found it like to be a kind of traumatic, is a word that he uses, experience, and like wondering whether it was worth it. And it's one of those things where I didn't get emotional until hours later. I went home and my dad, who is a physician, a retired physician, was asking me like how it went. And I was describing what we had seen. And then I talked about how the guy still had his wedding ring on, and I burst into tears. And it was like, oh, that hit me in a way. And like, it's like a visceral thing. And sort of, I want to pull in too a quote by, if I can get back to my doc, by our director, who just talks about in this one interview that we'll link to in the show notes, but that, nope, I lied. It's Emil talking about it, but just that it is horrifying to see an autopsy, and that where we're living in this movie is inherently horrific. And I'm going to go further to say that like you don't need, I counted, I actually have a tally at the top of my notes. There are 6 jump scares that I counted that were truly like, the sound blast, or the sting or whatever, because it's like, I don't know, it's our lizard brains. That's not what we're meant to see. And so Emil talks about going to go, and that he felt a melancholy from that he said he wouldn't have felt if he hadn't gone in person. And I 100% went back to that wedding ring. And I think there is like, they have to compartmentalize, but there is a very personal human element to it. And I think that's something that they forget about as part of their job, right? But sort of are forced to re-examine that in this particular case, because Jane demands, like, you are not going to just look at me as a body. Like, this is, someone to whom trauma has been inflicted and and you're gonna pay attention. So anyways, that was my experience. Ryan, what was yours like?
So I was working on a TV show with homicide detectives, and their sort of initial thing was to take the, brand new camera operator in town down to the coroner's office to see the autopsy and just,
as you do,
screw with him, see what he does. And sure enough, you're right. They move quick, and I was doing okay until they got to the part where they peeled back the face, and my knees went weak, and I had to step out. Yeah, I couldn't handle anymore. I couldn't get past that.
It's such a surreal moment. I have that burned into my brain too, from the one that I saw.
It's a lot, and I never went back into another one. But everyone had a good laugh at my at my weak knees. I know it's horrible, but that's,
I hate that.
But that's the thing. It's like, when you're, that's your life, that's your profession. They get humor out of the darkest moments. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, they do. In that same interview, both the director and Emil, have they ever actually said the director's name? His name is Andre Uvedal.
And he's actually, I was going to say, he's got a new movie coming out, Voyage of the Demeter, this weekend, actually. Not to date this podcast, but could be good. Maybe. Fingers crossed.
I hope so. Yeah, I really hope so. Vampires on a boat. That's my favorite. But like, so Emil also talked about in that interview, that same medical examiner that you mentioned, Ryan, is the British guy who is self-described. He's like, I think I'm a low-level psychopath. That like, they're there's like a certain amount of like, dark humor, compartmentalization that like, it's the same thing that doctors do.
Yeah.
Like you can't get through the day otherwise. But that compartmentalization, as we can see, can also be to folks' detriment.
100%.
So it's kind of like an interesting line to
Yeah,
walk.
and it's clever the way they work that sort of lifestyle into this movie, right? I mean, it just with the dad kind of focusing completely on
and like the
facts.
upbeat, like the rock radio, and just like which changes, right? She won't let them listen to that either.
That's true.
Like she's
and that's a good point that I did skip over too. Like when we first meet our main characters doing their first initial autopsy, rock music is blasting out of the radio, and the radio plays a significant factor later on in the movie. And I should not have left that out because the radio is kind of important. So
while we're still sick of my voice, I just want to say one other thing, and then I'm going to be quiet for a while. But I thought you're like,
no,
bet.
do not.
But something I thought was interesting, because I didn't know this song "Let the Sunshine In," and like this particular set of lyrics they do is about the devil, which okay, and makes sense in what we're talking about later. However, did you know, because I did not, that there is another version of this song that is literally basically like, don't blame me because you got hurt before, like that's not my fault, don't take it out on me. I'm like, ooh, because that's what she's doing in the whole movie. So I don't know, that may just be coincidental, but I thought that was interesting.
I feel like the radio
please.
is like a character on its own.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Yeah.
Same more.
No, I mean that was basically it. Like, I mean, like literally. Well, I guess we're getting into like the actual autopsy of Jane.
Yeah.
Is that what we're moving towards? Okay,
Let's
cool.
do it.
Cool.
Did you want to go? Do you want me to go?
No, that was it. I just had one. I just want to throw in a comment. Just color it a little bit.
Okay. All right. I'll get us there, and then we can expand upon it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Burke hustles off, and our two guys stick around to start doing the autopsy, and they start going right into their thing, right? They start collecting blood samples. They find that her wrists and her ankles have been fractured, and they start looking for all the causes of death, which, their typical sort of strategy, going externally.
Important note on the fractures, though. There's no external bruising. Remember?
That's a very good point.
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry. I just don't want to skip that.
And another note on Laura's yeah.
Go ahead, Laura.
Another note on Laura's personal crusade about the color palette in this movie, that Brian is wearing an orange apron, which I'm going to posit that in this movie, like the orange and brown tones are about family and home and warmth and security. So this is him at his like domestic, right? So I think, I don't know, I feel like it has to be deliberate, and that's my tinfoil.
No,
hat
I think
in
that's
this
great. I
movie.
think
so. Get ready for me to track.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off that. Even like the line where Brian was like, "You didn't have to stay," and he was just like, "I know, right?" That was like a great bonding situation for them, because it's like, okay, my son is carrying on the legacy.
You're right. It's
Totally.
delivered really well, and you're right. It's just like a great short line. It's just like right off the cuff, but it says so much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey DT, do you want to talk about the Pete, because that's what they find next?
Yeah. I don't mind talking about it, Pete. One thing to know, I want to go back into the beginning though. So one of the things that I like after like fourth or fifth time of watching this movie, one thing I noticed, it's very, very subtle in the very beginning of the movie. After we see all the credits roll up on the dirt or the peat, and we see the shot of the house, there is, I believe they set the location. I think it's the only time they do like a location setting. It's Virginia, right? And that's something really, really important to note, especially when they start discovering the peat, because presumably it looks like dirt. And then that's what the son expects. It's dirt. He's like, no, this is denser. This is heavier. And he looks into it. It's like, this is peat, right? You can't really get peat anymore. Peat doesn't exist unless you go to a fucking Home Depot or whatever, And so, or you go up north, right? And that's like a breadcrumb they're dropping to suggest like maybe this cadaver did originate here, which kind of gets into one of my theories that I'm going to go into later. But
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Because like it's because my whole thing is, you see this, and going along with what you were saying, Ryan, you see this woman that literally is porcelain skin and with gray eyes There's no signs of trauma on her outer body. But then when they start digging, they see that she has broken wrists, broken ankles, and and then they discover some other things as they go through. So it's one of those things where it's just like, what the hell is going on? And you even see that on the father's face. I mean, he's a professional, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like things aren't really adding up, but like, he's so methodical at what he does that like, he's just going to follow the book, right? Like, he's not going to deviate from that, because he's going to, do what he knows works.
And you need that though, too, right? Like in investigations
exactly.
like this, you do. But personally, he needs more than just that.
for this this job, he definitely does.
Okay,
Yes.
so they start investigating, and they start coming up with all these different factors, right? So we have fractured wrists, ankles. We've got peat under the nails. We've got a missing tongue. Her eyes are gray, saying which apparently, according to the movie, is an indication that she's been dead a very long time. But there's no rigor mortis going on. And let's talk about the tongue.
Which doesn't add up. Yeah,
nothing adds up. So the tongue has been cut out, but like not surgically. And even Emil says it's severed, exactly. Really roughly, too.
Crudely is the word they use, crude.
Yes, creepy term, crudely severed. And we start learning that this woman was tortured, basically. And that's what they kind of come to at first. They start thinking maybe she's part of like
they had a couple theories they were playing with based on
sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Which
points to, I mean, that's still happening to women now, so that's fun.
Jesus.
But that that extreme torture she has undergone still happens. So I appreciate also.
And it's a good kind of red herring for their professional line of work, right? Because that would be a modern thing that we're dealing with, and that's that would be a logical thing that they would go to.
Right. It's still weird, but you can kind of like force the puzzle piece in if you like really smush it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like I do. We're punching some puzzles. But
and
snip aside.
They get the blood from her nose, like her nose starts moving, and like a fly comes out.
Yeah.
Fly comes out and then gets zapped. Yeah.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
And then
I loved
he takes the test from her vagina, right? And it's like she's all cut up inside there.
Well, it's the molar.
The molar's missing too. I totally forgot the molar.
Yeah.
She's got a molar missing on the lower left side, and so he wants to take impressions. And as he's looking, which is also gross, pulls twine out of her throat. And then it's the rape kit.
But you got to pay attention to the molar because the molar's going to come back later in the movie.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It is done.
And they do the rape test on her, and they find horrific, cut up. She's cut up inside, basically.
Like it was
the phrase they use. Yeah, the phrase they use is she's torn up inside.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is horrendous. And so we get to that point.
Emil is like, let's go.
Yeah.
Well, Emil's ready to call it, and Brian is like,
no,
nah.
we haven't even started yet.
Go ahead.
like this is just the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So the radio is talking about the weather and how the next 4 days are going to be great weather, right? At this point, too, right? Like that's what it's saying.
Yep.
And then,
but this is literally because it's quiet and they're moving to this internal investigation, right? So they put her up on this yoga block or looking thing. I don't know if it's actually a yoga block, and as they're getting ready to make the Y incision, as the scalpel is about to hit the skin, the radio turns on by itself, and it does let the sunshine.
There you go. That's what happens.
So she's like, no,
Right.
Almost signifying a warning. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I have a question because I was trying to figure this out because it seems like it's like so I have a theory about this her whole journey. Right. And what she represents, and I've been reading a few different theories about this particular Jane Doe. So my question is when the radio, gives the warning, right? Is it a warning as in hey, don't cut into me unless you want to be killed? Or is it a warning of I don't want you to find out what's inside of me or who I am?
I think it's fuck around and find out. She's like, I am an angry lady. I am on the warpath. If you get in my way, you're gonna fucking find out.
Drop the mic. Fuck around and find out. No,
that's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. But then that also makes you wonder too. Like,
It's a great question.
did the old people, did they get a warning, or do you think like what happened? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a
whole bunch of things. There's a lot of
we have
questions.
no
Yeah,
idea.
Exactly.
I know there's a whole prequel there.
Like,
just saying.
Did she like show up in their
It
basement?
really
'Cause,
is.
Like, they're not morticians.
Right.
What? So are you proposing, Ryan, like a flat Stanley sort of situation? Like we're just gonna see Jane in like different, you know?
Just saying.
Okay, I'll hire
just saying.
you. Let's
I'm just
do
saying.
it. Yeah.
Okay, I want to get into one of my
Go for
theories.
it. Do it. Dig in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get
Yes.
into one of my theories. And this is just a smaller theory, and I think a lot of people may, So, like, I think when all this happened, this whole event. Actually, no, I should wait because we have to talk about what they find, right? Because the
I'm
thing
so
is,
excited.
Internally?
I know.
Well, okay. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll
Yeah,
keep moving. So, okay. So,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Boom, 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 boom.
okay. So then,
I'm here with you. I'm ready.
the radio starts talking about
I
the
know.
radio plays the music, but it reports, a storm is moving in, right? So there's a warning of the storm.
Yes.
And then
I don't know if anyone else felt this way. I love the drain.
Oh, yeah.
In
Yeah.
this set,
Oh, yes,
in this,
yes.
it looks ritualistic, and just the way that it's shot, like from overhead, it looks like part of a ritual, and I'm obsessed with it. And I'm just so happy that they picked it. I don't know if they made it or found it, but A++.
No,
okay, well then so they cut into her and she bleeds, which again is unusual to Brian, right? I mean, and Emil. They both say like, "Oh, this is kind of
sorry,
weird."
yeah, I buried the lead there.
But like
Yeah,
I think very
think
strange.
Emil even says, "Have you ever seen this happen before?" And he like doesn't he or
says
something like
once.
that? Yeah,
He says
it-
one.
yeah,
and Brian-
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he gives an explanation, but it's not even like he's not even so sure about
Right.
that
yeah,
thing.
because he's like a few hours
There's-
within a few hours of the death, it happened once or something like that.
but then the eyes are
So
gray,
that-
so
Right.
things aren't just
Questions
So we
of-
have this weird
questions abound.
Yeah, we have so many inconsistencies. Yeah.
exactly.
I will say that that same interview I keep pointing back to with Emil Hirsch, the director, they were talking about influences on the film, and Mr. Overdahl talks about how he was influenced in part by the movie Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, with sort of the beauty and the way that the bodies are shot and like mystery and whatever. And then Emil makes the point of like that moment that we just talked about with the bleeding is he actually said during filming, he turned to Brian Cox and he's like, you know what this is like? It's that moment in Seven when Brad Pitt is like, have you ever seen anything like this? Like, no. So he doesn't mean Brad Pitt, a much better one than I do. But so I guess we've got in many places, maybe we can challenge listeners to find other connections, but that is one that is like neon sign. They like
I know,
the movie
but
Seven.
I was going to say the other influence too on this movie, which is kind of interesting, and I think also the reason why it is very not straightforward, but like it is just like a classical sort of horror in its nature is because the director also mentioned that he saw The Conjuring, the first one, and he liked that style of just being like, hey, we're going back to our roots and we're just going to like, we're going to stick to character-driven horror. And so that's what he liked about this movie. And he was looking for a movie like this because that's kind of like the signal he got from The Conjuring and wanted to find something similar. So, that also, now granted, he did say Seven. I know what you're talking about, Laura. And I don't think The Conjuring had a direct influence, but just the fact that The Conjuring was kind of bringing back this vibe of like the old 70s character-driven horror. That's what he was looking for when he was trying to find this movie to make.
Well, and that interview that we're talking about, the moderator points out, which I know is your and my favorite movie. I don't know about how Joe and DT feel about it, but about The Thing.
Yup.
Like isolation horror. And again, I mean, technically that's 80s, but character driven and, all those things. So like so the director said like he wasn't consciously thinking about it, but it's a movie that he also loves and like watches all the time. So that I think you can make the argument for the through line there. Do you guys like that movie?
Yes, Kurt Russell.
Yes. It's been a while.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yes, Kurt Russell.
Oh, that was great.
It's been a while, but yeah.
It's so
random
good.
fact about that movie too. John Carpenter actually didn't want to hire Kurt Russell for it. Like he had someone else in mind all the way until like a week before production. And Kurt Russell was like, hire me. And he's like, I just don't want to be known as the guy who hires Kurt Russell for everything. I can't remember who he was going to put in the movie instead. And it didn't work out. So he's like, all right, Kurt Russell, come on up.
Before we hop back in, just while we're talking about like wonderful horror directors, the reason that Emil Hirsch decided to do this film and take a horror film, because he's like Oscar nominee Emil Hirsch, blah 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 blah. Like, so people wrongly think of of horror as being lowbrow. He ended up doing this movie because he was in this movie called Killer Joe. Directed by William Friedkin, who we just lost.
Yeah.
Who directed famously The Exorcist and would tell stories about it, when they were working together, and that really tickled Emil Hirsch's fancy, and he decided that was an area that he wanted to explore. So thank you, William Friedkin, for making this movie possible.
And also, thank you for all the wonderful interviews William Friedkin has done, because they are popping up all over this week since his passing, and they are hilarious.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else watched them, but I love every time a little video pops up. I'm like, I'm going to watch this for sure, because he's going to have something funny as shit to say.
He's sassy.
He's so sassy.
Mm-hmm.
But all that to say, the Y incision.
Listen, yes, okay.
So they cut into her, and there's some strange stuff going on inside. What's going on here? Oh wait, well hold on. They take they've been taking a bunch of samples actually, and they do take a sample of her blood, and Emil puts it in the fridge. And
so they put it in the fridge, and then for a second they're like looking at these little masses, and they're like, "Is it melanoma?"
Right.
No, but let's send this to the lab too. So he goes back to the fridge.
Which is leaking blood. And he opens up the fridge, and the blood is leaking out of the vial that he put the blood in, which is very strange and not usual at all, right?
Mm-hmm. No.
And dad gets mad. Brian's like, what? And this is really funny, because I feel like this starts off, Brian Cox has a habit of saying, what the hell are you doing in this movie? Or a variation of that a few times in this movie. Yep. And this sort of kicks off that line of, what the hell are you doing moments in this movie? And sure enough, he's like, Dad, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll clean it up. And then Brian gets his own rib pliers, and he starts cracking it open, and then finds more mysterious stuff. Like, anyone remember?
Very black lungs.
Which I think is the more important one. The little one that I'll do at the footnote is she has an unnaturally small waist, and so they're like, "Oh yeah, that looks like it's from a corset." Yeah. But people don't wear corsets anymore, and I'm like, "I'm sorry, my dude. They're called waist trainers, and women definitely still do that." But yes,
but for this world, they don't.
Right, exactly. Because I like written by men, directed by
cinched waist, 17th century.
Yes, like the S shape. But okay, so the more important one, though, to DT's point, is the lungs. So
I mean, they're black as shit. I mean, you could have smoked 10 packs a day for 30 years, and it wouldn't be that black. So obviously, this person, the inside in general just looked completely jacked up. Like this person, there was stab marks, black lungs, and it was like this person was tortured horrifically. However, the outside of the body was not matching
pristine
at all.
And didn't even the heart have evidence of like slash marks to the heart?
Yep.
Yes.
Which is, generally not survivable. Just throwing that out.
No, and not something like that is, you want someone to not have a good time. This thunderstorm starts, the lights flicker, and they're like trying to think like, well, why did they kill her in such a brutal manner? Because this is like not great looking. And the line is, you want to make them suffer. And while they're thinking about that,
it's so brutal.
He wasn't even supposed to be there. He said that several times in the movie. He's like, I wasn't even supposed to be here. I was not supposed to be here. But anyway.
That's not my fault. But also, there's a grad student somewhere who is going to write a thesis about something about women carrying all this internal trauma and not getting to show it externally. But So they.
I don't think we're supposed to laugh at that, but it was more your delivery, Laura. I promise.
What's your delivery? I was not laughing at that whatsoever.
I get excited. No, you're allowed to laugh because this is the sort of thing that I do when I'm sitting in a movie theater and I need help. So someone else wants to take it like lightning, bah, and then
Brian is there's two things happening. So he's going to investigate the noise, and Brian notices something under her skin, and so he gets his little knife thing to cut underneath. But I'll go into that later. Or do we want to? Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, Emil's down the hall and he hears something in the AC unit, right? Or the vent, I guess. And he goes to investigate the vent while Brian is, doing his investigation, checking something out.
Yeah.
And so something like flits past Emil in the vent and he falls backwards, makes a big crash. And then Brian shows up. He goes, "What the hell happened?"
Again. Fucking Brian.
And so he goes, "There's something in the vent." So he gets a flashlight and he shines it in there. And it's poor Stanley the cat. Poor Stanley the cat has been wrecked. Which I thought witches weren't supposed to hurt animals. I thought witches liked animals. But I mean, I know the cat hits her. Yeah.
Well, before that, doesn't Brian, as he's cutting into like the rib to get under the skin, doesn't he like slice his wrist? Or does that happen later?
He cuts himself with a scalpel before they find Stanley.
Before they find Stanley.
So you can hold on to that. Yeah. But so they go and find poor Stanley, and actually I think the fact, like the note that you just made about like hurting animals and especially a cat, I think will probably support Joe's theory that I think he's going to be talking about later, maybe, about how maybe things aren't going on the way we think they are. But yeah, so poor Stanley is dying, and I think something that's important to note too. Did we talk about this already? That it's the mom's cat.
Oh no, we didn't mention that.
It's Emil's.
No, we did not.
So it's Emil's mom and Brian's wife, who has, as we said, died by suicide. This is her cat, and so Brian picks him up, holds him really tenderly, and then breaks his neck to put him out of his misery. Yeah. So he. So that may come up later too, some mercy killing. And he carries the cat in a blanket to the crematorium. And I have a question for y'all that I don't have an answer to, but I'm hoping someone smarter than me can, unpack this. We see like this shot, and then there's like a shot of Jane that we see earlier. This is all in like that security kind of like mirror thing that does like the fisheye. We use that a lot. So what do we make of this choice to go back to that over and over and over again?
Okay, so me personally, I think it's literally just like a creepy element they're doing. I do, because I also think there's and I had a question in the beginning of the movie too, because I was like, wait a minute, are there two mirrors? Because there's a shot earlier in the movie where there's one mirror shot that doesn't match with the other mirror shots. Like it's a dirty mirror, and so it's got like a film over it, but there's one shot where it's actually like pretty clean and you don't see the film on it. And I was like, wait, are there two mirrors? Is there one mirror? But I think it's only one mirror. I think there's it's just in that one corner. Yeah. So I think it's, look, I'm going to take it very literally and just be like, I think it's just a creepy element. I don't know if it really has any more going for it than that.
And I think, well, maybe there's something deeper there, but like my impression of it, especially in the beginning, because they do show that mirror shot in the very beginning before they even bring the body in. And that's kind of the impression that I got as well.
And I almost thought there was someone in that mirror shot in the very beginning, the very first shot of it too.
There may have been.
It was just a hallway. Well, no, it was just a hallway. He just looked in it. It was just a hallway, but there was nothing there. Yeah.
To your point, though, Ryan, I wonder. So this is the only thing I have as a theory is that like, this movie kind of reminds me of It Follows in that it had the way it's shot, its preoccupation with like big wide angles. So you're like scanning in the background. And I feel like that's amplified in these like mirror things because like the shapes are distorted anyway. Yeah. So you're like, is that a person? Is whatever. So I guess maybe it's like a heightened version of that, which I'm just coming to right in this moment. But I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too, it's like, it took some digital effects to take the camera work out of it, right? So you don't see the camera in the mirror, if it's even a real reflection. So maybe the director was just like all hot on that, just like, But
Oh,
I mean, I would like to
didn't
think
think
it's a
about
little
that.
bit.
That's a good point.
There's a little bit more meaning to it that I just haven't caught on to because he's a European director, right? So it's like so Brian, puts the cat out of its misery. They bring it to the crematorium and they
Needs a
dispose
moment.
of the cat. He needs a moment to himself, and this is where we kind of finally get to hear a little bit or like get a taste of their relationship when they talk about mom, right? Because the next scene is they're back over the body and they're back to investigating. And Emil, says like, hey, if you have something to talk about, you can. And he's like, I'm not hiding anything, that sort of thing. And he kind of like gets defensive and they kind of just move on from it. But you do get the feeling that dad is, holding some baggage here and, not letting go of things. And so that cat scene was a bigger moment for him than it normally would be in a horror movie. So
It's like some of the only vulnerability that we get to see because he puts up such a wall.
yeah, which
Yeah.
Brian Cox does so well.
Yes, he
He really
does.
does. He's so good at it. Okay, so they start taking out the organs. Well, they have been taking out the organs.
Yeah, phase 3.
Yeah, and then we're down to the skin, right? DT, the discovery.
Well, he notices
No,
something in the
sorry,
beginning.
we totally have to go
but
to the
they-
stomach.
they
We
had-
have to go to the stomach.
Yeah,
Stomach.
not yet.
My bad.
Yeah,
I totally skipped the stomach. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So they pull out the flower from the stomach first, and that flower is
That's
Jimson weed, which we are all familiar with from the Love Witch because that was in the drinks she was giving the men, right? Jimson weed.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
right. Jimson weed.
That's right.
It's every horror director's favorite go-to, right?
It's a witchy
4 out of
essential.
5 witches recommend. Yeah. But so it's supposed to be a paralytic agent, right?
Yep.
And they say to DT's point, but it confirms that she's
Dun,
from
dun,
up
dun.
north somewhere. And as they're ruminating on this, the storm gets worse.
Storm gets worse. I also like Brian's little library he has that can answer any question they have.
I know.
Oh, I know, right?
Isn't that so convenient? Like it was.
Like, let me just.
He had everything.
Linear horror movie, guys.
King
Linear.
James Bible.
Linear horror movie.
Susan Sontag says, don't worry about it.
Grey's Anatomy, Grey's Toxicology, Grey's Herbology. He's got them. Don't worry.
Yeah.
He's got them
He
all.
got him everything. Oh my gosh. This guy.
And then, okay, so
no.
we dig deeper into the stomach, and then we find the molar.
Yeah. And first we should say, like, Emil is like, let's wait until the morning.
Oh, yeah,
and
because
then
of the
Brian's
storm.
like, when we start something, we finish
Right,
it.
that's a good
So,
point.
yeah.
Brian's
But we got some hubris.
hot on sticking it through, just pushing through, no matter
Yep.
what.
Okay.
Because
But yes,
Burke
the
needs it.
intestines.
And then he digs deeper into the
Yes.
intestines, and he finds a little cloth, and he unwraps the cloth, and there's a tooth in it, which I would immediately think that would be the missing tooth. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just like
It's so
No,
funny
yeah.
that, like, that's a huge light bulb for him later. I'm like,
Yes.
I literally put in my notes, I said, he just put the tooth together. Don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
Like, what is. What? But,
so.
but
Okay.
yeah, so the cloth has mysterious symbols on it.
Yes, that has mysterious
And-
symbols on it, and then he's
And then, so then that's when Emil, like, looks under the microscope and is like, oh my God, it's the same tooth. So, come on, guys. But, and then, Brian also, in all of his wisdom, says, every ritual has its purpose. Thanks. That's great. Like, just,
okay,
dropping all
Laura.
these
He doesn't
truth
say
bombs.
just like that. Okay, there's a lot more mystery to it, and just like
Every ritual
That was
has
perfect.
its purpose.
that was exactly how he
Thank
delivered
you.
it.
No notes.
So I'm very, very curious. So up until this point, so when I first watched the movie, I knew what to
Yeah.
expect. But like for the people that watched it with no expectation, like as they're going into the body and you're finding all these things, at what point, or if you did at all, at what point do you start to realize that this could be a witch? Is it still pretty vague at this point where you're just kind of like asking more questions? And
I will say that.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Well,
Joe.
I was just going to say, up until I remember this very distinctly from the first time I saw this. I thought I had this movie figured out in the first 15 minutes, where I assumed it was going to be kind of like a trapped demonic possession, where maybe all of these things were done to like contain an evil spirit within the body, right? So like when they started, like, especially when they found like the molar in the stomach with like the rune and everything else, I thought there was a spell, like the arms were broken, the legs are broken. I thought they were trying to use the body as a vessel, and the body had like spells on it to stop like a spirit from escaping. So I thought this was demonic possession at this point.
That's so interesting. So interesting. What about, so it wasn't something that's very specific for you when you first saw it, like, as in, like, because the very specific thing is that this was a witch.
Right. Yeah.
But it came off more as like a cursed object or a demonic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I truly thought that this was kind of like exorcism, but with an already dead body. I thought that's where they were going with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I freely admit I had no idea. No idea. I was just along for it. So I didn't, I feel like usually I do spend a lot of time trying to like forecast what something might be. But this one I was like, I don't know. This shit's weird. Let's see what happens. Where are we going? So.
And I bet you I probably thought the same lines as Joe, because I feel like that would be my immediate go-to too, would be demonic possession. This probably has something to do with like our Catholic upbringing, Joe, I'm sure. It's
probably.
Like where our heads go like immediately, where it's just like,
You guys grew up
Satan
Catholic?
and demons.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Dang.
the next reveal though for the body is the tattoos on the skin, right?
Yes, the runes.
Well, yeah,
The runes,
yes.
Right, exactly. So it's like, it's almost like a human sacrifice, because we have the satchel already. But like, so then the weather report goes back to the creepy song. Like, so as they're getting deeper again and getting closer, she's like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But they're
Yes.
gonna. So then Emil is like, I think maybe we should get out of here. But Brian's like, no. So then they peel open the skin, like, like butterfly style.
Right.
And there's all kinds of like spooky runes inked on the inside.
And this is my one complaint. This is my one complaint with the movie is...
Oh, go ahead.
No, this was my one where I didn't buy the world, because everything else I was willing to accept. But this is DT to your question earlier about when I really thought I nailed it with like demonic possession. I thought those tattoos were, again, some sort of incantation or something to keep, the devil inside this dead vessel. Right. And it bothered me to no end. How in the hell did you ink the inside of someone's skin? I get that this witch isn't fully dead. Like we're coming up on that. Sorry, audience. We're getting there a little early now. But like this really, really upset me. I was like, out of all of them, this is unbelievable. Like, how the hell would you get these tattoos on you unless it was some sort of ritual performed by someone else to like contain it,
Okay, so that's okay. I'm gonna have to jump. I apologize. So I had that initial reaction as well. I know, right? I had that initial reaction as well. I was like, I'm not buying this. Like, the thing is, how in the hell did you, like, what happened here, right? And then I started kind of going down a rabbit hole on Reddit, and then and I started thinking to myself,
wait, during your first watch? Your rabbit hole on Reddit?
No. This is after like
Most
3 or
recent
4.
one.
Yeah. 3 or 4. Yeah. So basically, like, when we look at it, right, we look at Jane Doe as this porcelain white, beautiful woman, right? But like, for me at least, I don't know how you guys, where you were seeing it, but the whole time I'm thinking of her as this whole thing. So as we start uncovering this body, we're seeing a completely different story, right? And even Brian mentions to the son, or the son mentions to Brian, like, this person would look like they're mangled. So I'm wondering, like, as she was getting tortured back then, right, how mangled was this body? I mean, she was burned, stabbed, all these different things. What is to say they didn't cut her open literally, like fillet her, and then started adding these like tattoos, symbols on? Because obviously, like this, and it's very ritualistic how they tortured her. Like, it almost begs the question, what the fuck did she do, right? Because, like, to Brian, like, later on, he mentions, like, I'm just gonna mention it, but like the whole Salem witch trials and things like that. Like, a lot of these girls, most of these girls, all these girls were innocent. They were just literally, they were innocent, Okay,
I think
I'm gonna wrap it up right here. But like, so for me, it's just like, how mangled was this body? Because now it makes sense why there would be these tattoo marks inside of her. And I think Brian even mentions it later on down the line when he starts to put it together. This torture was so ritualistic that maybe this is what made her into this whole entity, right? So this whole ritual literally made her into this, And so, and like one of my theories is like over the years, she probably started out as just this mangled thing left out the side, but as she started over the years, she started building power because she literally started luring people to their death and taking their life force. And over the years, it started kind of completing her evolution. So that's one of the theories that I had, like in terms of like why she looks the way she is and her insides are, and we see that later down the line, right? When Brian makes a pact with her, her insides start to heal. And he basically goes through the same thing she went through.
I mean, I 1,000%
Sorry, Laura.
agree.
I'm sorry.
No. It's amazing. It's amazing because I agree with you. And that's actually what I wanted to bring up. It didn't even occur to me that might have been folks like literally tattooing inside because like DT, I interpreted it, and they talk about this later, that it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That it was just this woman who went through such like unspeakable trauma and harm that they created the thing that they feared, which it gives me like kind of like The Grudge, you know, but just like rage embodied. And to me, tattooing on the inside, right, would be something that in theory is physically impossible, which to me speaks to the fact that this power has in fact manifested from the inside, that is something that has happened after the fact. And like she has her own magic now, and she's like, all right, bitch, here are all the, here's the stuff. I'm so magical that it's like literally in my skin now.
It's like her own protective runes or something on the inside.
Right, or whatever, yeah, but that it's like it's made manifest, or like made tangible, and it makes me think of like, they talk about like atomic cinema with what do they call it? Like body as text, I think is what they talk about, like in the bombs like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but like body as text to remember and make people bear witness to atrocity.
So is her body,
and that's, what's happened to her.
Yeah, is her body like her grimoire now? Like, is that, what I mean?
That's how I read it.
Then I'm willing to back off of that one a little bit. I thought so because I agree. Well, no, but I'll say I agree with DT's overall theory. I think it's very obvious that, like, especially with, Brian later saying all these girls were innocent, blah, blah, blah. This was very much, she was created because of the atrocities that she experienced. And that's what turned her into this, this vessel, this witch that is now, doling out her own punishment. Agree with that wholeheartedly. I think I misunderstood that the tattoos were part of what they did to her. And that's what irritated me, because everything else, cutting off a tongue, breaking the arms and legs, putting the rune, the molar in the stomach, all of that totally believable, salt the earth so she can't come back. Something that people that think they've killed a witch would probably do. The tattoo thing, just like, that was the one part of the movie, because of my misinterpretation, that took me out of it, because everything else was very much just like as
Obviously
part of the world.
Yeah,
like part of the world that you would expect to happen to someone that you suspected was a witch and is now dead and buried, right? The tattoos took me out of it, but that explanation makes sense to me. Like, she's her own grimoire, basically.
Although, I'm going to challenge you to say, like, I don't think that you had a misinterpretation. I think that it invites itself to multiple readings, and that's like the magic hocus pocus, don't worry about it piece, right? Like, however you can justify
but the
it
group
in your head
the group discussion's good, because I think if we were to ask the director, he'd be like, she did that to herself, and be like, okay.
That's a good point, though, because I'd be curious to know how many other people were like, whoa. Like, you know what I mean? It's like one of the questions that went too far almost, right?
And it's super cool. And I think for me, I thought, oh, you guys went with something that was cool, because it is. It's like really like, it's an interesting thing to see skin peeled back, in a horror movie and have tattoos underneath it. Like,
shot.
it's like, damn, I had never thought about that before. Like, that is like, there aren't too many new scares, you know what I mean? And that was one where I was like, you know, you get like, everyone hates when the nails are getting pried off or like teeth are getting, you know, like the cringe. But like, I had the cringe with the skin getting peeled back and like the tat. I was like, so from like a visceral reaction, I was like, oh, that's great. But there was like a more cerebral part of me that like felt like it was a cheapness to it, because I didn't think it fit everything else that could happen to her. That's all. Anyway, I digress. This is not an important part of the movie, guys. So
no, that's funny though.
Let's push on. Let's push on.
Well, but okay. While we're talking about her, we've talked about her this entire episode and have not mentioned her name. Let's give a shout out, or can we talk about 2 seconds, to Olwen Kelly, who is the Irish actress who portrays Jane Doe. They used a live, real person, and she is a yogi, so was really good at shallow breathing, could stay still. They said, I mean, across the board, director included, they've said that she had the hardest role to do, and I think it's true. Like, we'll talk about later, but like, she's able to like subtly change facial expression, and like, she's still very much like a constant presence, but it's really an incredible performance that like she stays completely still. Granted, there's, you know, like editing and whatever, but it's really impressive. And the fact that we didn't talk about her, I also feel like means that she did her job, because she's not pulling focus.
But like,
so
you know what's so interesting about it, after like seeing it a few times, it's even like she's literally still the whole time, except the one shot at the very end, which goes back to my theory of like how she's kind of building her power over the decades, right? Once she like repairs her inside, because like what's the next step for her, right? Like, maybe she's able to walk. Maybe she's able to talk, right? Like, I think she's slowly repairing herself to form. But, like, what's interesting is that she is still the whole time. But because of, like, I'm so drawn in, it's almost like she's alive in a way, you know? I don't know if you guys had that experience with, literally, she's dead on a slab. That's it. But, like, for me, it was just, like, I don't know. Like, the thing is, like, her stillness and the subtlety, like you were mentioned, Laura, like the subtlety of like different face expressions, right? Like, I mean, it's a remarkable performance. Yeah. I've had to play dead on stage before, and it's literally like 3 minutes, bro.
Do tell. In what?
This is so funny. I got shot off stage.
Oh no!
I got shot. No, so the play is called Jim of the Ocean. Let me give some context. The play is called Jim of the Ocean. I'll make this quick. Jim of the Ocean by August Wilson. It's like the first play of his like 10-part series of the Pittsburgh canon. And I play this guy named Solomon Two Kings. Anyway, I'm beefing with a guy. He shoots me off stage. I have to go on stage, and I die on stage, and they're singing over me. And I'm trying so hard to be still and not breathe. But when you're in front of a live audience, people are over you, and they have their hands on you, it's incredibly hard to not breathe. So people would laugh because literally you would see my stomach going up and down. So it's incredible.
Gotta do more yoga.
Hard to say. Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, no, like to your point, Laura, it was a brilliant performance. It's incredibly hard to stay still for that long. Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone mention this, but I'll just want to do one small thing, and then again, I'm going to hopefully shut up for a little while. But I love, this isn't her choice, but I love her front teeth because they look almost like child teeth. And to me, that is in the way of like, I go back to like the wedding ring from the guys whose autopsy I witnessed, that it's a very like humanizing trait to me. And we actually see a lot of shots with her mouth slightly parted open where we see those. And I don't know again, that's something that's maybe not intentional, maybe not, but like to me, that just keeps reminding me she's a person. Yeah. So I don't know. Point. I thought that was really cool. And like, she's not in control over, the teeth that she grew, but good on you for that as well, Owen. Thank you for I don't know.
So okay, where were we at?
Oh, and now the drawers are opening too.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then the
right.
light bulbs, and so they're like, and then the light bulbs burst.
This moment too is like
blackness.
One of the better moments. Well, not better moments, but like one of the moments in the movie where the editing really takes over and you kind of notice it, and the build is so good. Like the editing build in this particular section is so good because they're cutting so much faster and they're cutting on these like slow push-ins, and it's just like you're feeling everything condense and build and build and build, and then the lights explode. And I think that the editing in this particular section of the movie is just really good, fantastic. So kudos to the editor on this particular section of the movie.
The lights go off. I'm kind of, what happens after that?
So then they're like, we got to get the hell out of here.
So this really scares me. Yeah. Brian, let's get the fuck out of here. But it's because so the elevator, so it's black. And then this actually scared the shit out of me the first time I saw it. Cause like you hear the elevator open. So like somebody else is here and then there's just like panting. So, and this actually I thought was really cool. I never notice, I'm not very good at noticing like editing choices or like choices by the DP. But we go to handheld for this part, right? Where Emil is using the light on his phone and all of the drawers are open, but like it's handheld, it's chaotic. And that's when Brian is like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
He's like standing there like in disbelief. He's just like, can you do your impression one more time, Brian? Can you give us a nice Brian impression?
Please,
Go ahead.
yes.
Go for it.
Wait. Sorry. Is this let's get the hell out of here or what the hell is going on?
Let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Let's get the fuck out of here is your line.
What the hell's going on? Let's get the fuck out of here.
Perfect.
Thank you.
There it is. Nailed it.
So they run off, but they can't. Which is really funny because they run down the hallway, and then the lights come on, and then Brian goes, "Oh, the generator!" And then, you know what I mean? It's just like, "Oh yeah," let it cue in the audience, and like, "Oh yeah, the generator's kicking in." They reach the elevator.
Right. Well, before that, they try to get out, but a tree has fallen across the storm doors. So then they're going to try to like go to the office to get to the landline. So then we've got like the creepy long hallway.
That's right.
And I will say, when they get to the office, more of I'm me on my bullshit about the colors. The office is brown and orange because it is a safe place for them.
Well, before they get to the office, there's something that we hear. Something that we hear before the office, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Because
oh no, it's right now.
Yeah,
it's right now.
And,
as they make
it. It's right now.
Do it because this is your thing.
So we hear the bell.
Yes, the bell.
We hear the bell.
The bells.
Well,
The
but before they hear
bell.
is it because then there's the banging on the door, right? Oh yeah, he looks under the door to see the foot with the bell on it, right? And then it starts banging on the door, and they grab the cabinet and they throw it in front of the door, and they're holding the door closed to make sure nothing comes in.
Yeah,
and then it just stops.
So Emil goes, it's her. And Brian is like, you're talking about a corpse. And then what I have written in my notes is, come on, you dumb dummies. You're so close.
But Brian has to hold that out just a little bit longer, too. Like, he can't come around to it now. Remember? Because it's like, and then he looks at his arm, I'm bleeding. Then he runs into the bathroom to go, to fix his wrist again.
Yeah, that's right. And Emil has his line to DT's point, we should have left. I wanted to leave. And as soon as he says that, the lighting around Brian immediately turns blue because his home has gone. He knows that his son wants to leave and everything is sad, so he's not brown anymore. And Emil has taken off his other shirt. So he's wearing red and blue flannel because he's caught in between. And that was, I had it in bold and I was very proud of myself. And
Dang, I
that's
didn't
what
even
got.
catch
So,
that
but
one. That's
so
a good
Brian,
one. I didn't track
Yeah,
that
I
one.
know. That's
I didn't
great.
think about the flannel
oh,
shirt.
thanks, guys.
Dang.
Oh, Lord, coming
Yeah.
with it. All right.
Oh, that's what, because I can't be on my bullshit of like other theories. So I'm like, let's watch every frame a million times. Let's pause it. So yeah, then he gets like dragged on the floor flat, his back on the ground, and like they're separated by the door, right? Or something.
Separated by the door.
Like Brian's like dragged behind the door.
Right. It's like because
And so
he goes to the
like,
bathroom to fix. And the curtain's like flapping, remember? In the wind.
Also,
Well, yeah, there's somebody
Yeah.
behind the curtain. Yeah.
guys, I don't understand this at all. So maybe you can help me. Otherwise, unless the answers just go with it, don't worry about it. But so then Brian's like, they were gray, her eyes, it had her eyes. So like, what? So now they think it's like the dead mom, but like, no. But so then why are we spending time at like, I don't know. I just find this very confusing. Also, Brian's in a blue shirt now. But what? But like, what's
Are you
with,
talking about
why are we
when
talking
the
about
door
mom again?
Well, hold on,
Yeah,
are you talking
yeah,
about
so the door closes.
he's being
Right.
attacked, and he sees like
Right,
the
and then-
gray eyes, black
Yes,
face figure.
Yep, and then he like bandages his wound, and as he's talking to Emil, he's like, "It had her eyes." So like, do they think it's the mom? Or they think that Jane is manifesting the mom? Do I just need to not worry about this and like go back to eating
You know what?
popcorn?
No,
What
no,
is
no.
this?
Oh no, I want to hear what you.
Well,
what
I was
you
going to
have
think
to say,
that he's finally coming around to the fact that it is Jane Doe. It's like she had, her
Yeah.
eyes. But you're right, because there is still a moment of denial coming up after this too, I think. Well, and I guess it's just the fact that it's like, it's a one location thing. There's not much you can do within a single location. And so you have to,
And I guess maybe
have that
like
character.
mom is still on the brain, and I don't know. Maybe it's like one of those like my neuron is firing. I'm talking about this person, like, oh yeah, but also.
Well, what
I don't
happens
know.
directly after? No, well, I always thought he was talking about Jane because the eyes was literally gray with like a bluish hue.
Oh, so the thing they're talking about it because like he didn't realize that the silhouetted thing is it.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause after that point you get
Oh.
attacked. Yeah. After that point you get attacked. Your face, your head goes into a mirror. You can be in
Doy.
denial all you want. Yeah, like
Okay.
it's
Okay,
there.
okay, thanks, sorry.
It's there. At this point, he can be an old miserable man all he wants to, but who else pulled you and
Okay.
knocked your
Yeah.
head against
But
the
in
mirror?
fairness, Laura,
I
who
got it, I
tattooed
got
her
it.
skin?
I appreciate you.
Joe's not letting that one go. Joe's not.
So moving on from my gross humiliation, we go back to the morgue, and hey, guess what, guys? Instead of being all warm and lovely, now that things are scary and stuff, the lighting is blue, and
Dun,
we're
dun,
looking
dun.
at like blue tile and stuff instead. I know.
It's very blue.
Listen, somebody write me a grant right now. And also, all of the organs have
Right.
decomposed.
But,
since
and
they went to the
that's
office,
what,
and weird.
what they even like point that out, right? Rapid decomposition once they're out of
Yes,
her body.
they do.
Yeah. And they go back to the office. Well, they try to call.
So they're gonna take her. Oh yeah, they do. So they're still. I guess maybe they were still in there, and they like start to talk to him. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
They couldn't reach him. Yeah, they couldn't reach him,
but
but I think they decided to go back and deal with her because they realized
Yeah.
that they need to continue to.
right.
But they tried to move her. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna take her to the crematorium, but the doors close
Yeah.
by themselves
Yes.
and lock them inside. So she's like, nah.
Yes. So it's okay. So to catch everyone up. So yeah. So they have tried to call Burke
Sorry.
from the landline, and the landline didn't work.
Sheriff Burke.
Sheriff Burke from the landline
Sure.
for help because they
It's
can't get out.
important.
It
These
is
audience,
important.
we haven't talked about him in over an hour. He's going to say Stanley again, and everyone's going to be confused.
Stanley's back. There's a party in the basement.
There's hissing.
There's hissing. So okay, yeah. So they try to reach Sheriff Burke, and they kind of get through, but the phone basically gets dropped. The call gets dropped, and so they can't do that. But that was actually before the bathroom scene, right?
I
Right,
don't know, I
because
got
they make
excited
the
about
phone
that.
call,
You're
and then
right.
he
Yeah,
hears
yeah.
he hears the bell. He hears the bell on the other side of the door, and then all the scares happen.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
then,
oops.
yeah, so then he's like, "Oh, her gray eyes," and then Emil's like, "See, I told you, it's the witch. We shouldn't have messed with her. We need to get rid of her." And so then they're like, "Okay, yeah, let's team up and get rid of her." So they go back to her body,
to
to
move her
body into the crematorium.
Yeah, because they're gonna take her.
Right.
They're gonna
And
burn
as-
her.
Yeah, they get locked
Right, and
in.
as they're
Burn
like,
the witch.
as they're like getting ready to move her body, the door slowly closes behind them, and then click, locks,
Locked.
and they get locked in there. And they're like, whatever. And then so he pours the lighter fluid on her top of her, and Brian is
Well, before that, he
No,
tries
before
to break
that,
out.
yeah.
Yeah,
a
he tries to
fire
break
axe.
out.
right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Because okay, so
looks
they're locked.
through-
He tries to fight, pull the door open, grabs the axe, and starts like banging at the door. Jack Nicholson Shining style, kind of. And he looks through the hole, and I think this is probably one of the worst jump scares in the movie, I will say. Right? I mean, it doesn't even feel like they try with it almost, because like the stingers are not very loud. So it's like, I don't know what they were trying to do. Like,
I think it was more of a revelation for the father because, like, to Laura's point, like he's in so much denial that, like, until he clearly sees it directly in the face, he won't believe
Yeah.
it. I mean, maybe that was like the theory that I had, like, in terms of like why it was like that, because I noticed it. I was just okay, but yeah, maybe it was just a bad shot.
maybe
Linear
I don't
horror
know.
movie. Things happen,
Linear horror
you know.
movie. Yeah, I hear you.
Don't read too deep.
You're right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Joe.
Right. Good job, Joe. Good job. Good job. So
We
Thank
need
you,
to
Joe.
get you
Thank
like
you,
a
Joe.
button or like a bullhorn or like one of those like
Only when we read too deep. That's all.
that's right. No, you're right. You're right. So then the scare is he's looking through the hole, and the corpse woman with her eyes sewn shut and her mouth sewn shut pops right in front of the hole, and he jumps back. And so that's when we decide, screw it. Okay, we'll light her on fire right now, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
then
That's
they pour the lighter fluid on her, and Brian Cox lights, his book of matches, and he throws it on top of her, and she catches fire. But it doesn't work the way they want, because then the fire spreads up to the ceiling, spreads across the ceiling, and then just starts falling on all of the evidence they've already collected on her, including the videotape they made
looks really cool.
of her recording. Yeah, it does look really cool. They did a really good job with that. And he said apparently that was like one of the harder parts of production, because even though they only did like a small flame for the practical effects, they had, these big name actors on set. And so it was really hard to like do any of it, actually. So, which is interesting. Okay, so that starts catching fire. So then he yells at Emil to get the fire extinguisher. Pull the pin. And he fire extinguishes all the fire. And lo and behold,
How?
Jane is untouched. Another mystery among
And
mysteries.
cue the elevator
Oh yeah, and then
comes again.
the door can mysteriously open again.
Yep.
So-
and they go to try to catch this elevator. Oh yeah, go
They
ahead.
they go to try to catch the elevator, which is so the elevator coming down the first time then is obviously the girlfriend, Emily, right?
Oh, and also
Well, we
I
don't
messed
know-
up her name.
we don't know
Emma.
that.
Sorry.
Emma.
Oh yeah.
But yes.
We don't know
Emma.
that, obviously. We
Whatever.
don't know that. But I'm just saying, like, in hindsight, it's like, oh, yeah, that was her coming. They try to catch it. I see, again, this whole thing.
Well, see that's
Oh.
that's what I assumed as well, because I didn't understand. I was like, this is obviously they like to Joe's like the whole the tattoos and the skin. This is my just like, where the hell did the girlfriend come? Can we figure out where she came from? Because that's where you guys need to go. Okay, well, like you're trying to go through this thing where a tree fell off. She got into the building somehow. So can we figure that out?
Right.
Oh, I assume this
Yeah,
is the
right,
moment
because-
she gets there.
But
Well,
that's
right,
what I
yeah,
assumed. That's the only logical
Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're going like, and
Right.
like, okay, so like the lights are off. They try to get the elevator again, but they see like a figure getting closer.
Right.
And so Brian is ready, to like step up and protect his kid. So they get into the elevator, the power dies. They're trying to close the gate. And it's like the gunshot guy with no face. And so Brian like tries
Creeping
to hit him
towards
with the
them.
axe. And like, right. And so he hits him with the axe and it stops and they hear groaning. And then whoops.
Oh.
It's the girlfriend. That was
It's the girlfriend.
I hate that scene. She didn't need to
Oh,
die.
I literally wrote, man, it's nice that Emil and Brian are good actors. like,
Oh my
so
God.
like, so she's like bleeding out. Emil's devastated. He's like, sobbing on the floor, and Brian is horrified, and they're both crying. And Brian's like, "Whoa, we gotta go in the elevator." And I wrote, "Bye, Emily." I guess her name's Emma. But so that could have been, I think, lame. And like it is kind of strange because she does come out of nowhere and then it's like moving on, but they can sell it because they are actors,
That's a good point. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
in my view.
Yeah. And they don't spend
And
too
then
much
is
time
my-
doing it, right?
yeah.
Like they move. Like,
Right.
yeah.
And then it's my favorite scene in the movie. I don't know how everyone else feels about the trapped in the elevator
No,
scene.
and it makes a great
love
character
this
arc
scene.
because it goes into the backstory, and it's a great character arc for both characters.
Yes.
You know, and so, but I'll let you go.
Yes.
into
Yeah,
it,
go
Laura.
with it, Laura.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. But then everybody else should too. Okay. So I love it. It's so also it's blue and dark because everything is terrible, and you know that's our color for sad things.
Color
and
theory,
when the
go.
family is not functioning. Yes. Okay. So Emil is like blame. Oh, and meanwhile, this is important too. Brian's chest is hurting. Like this isn't
Yeah.
good. He's the man has undergone a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So Emil's blaming himself, you know, like I told her to come back. And it's actually very sweet because they both try to take the blame both for this and for the mom. So it's, you know, you couldn't have known is what Emil says, you know, and then Brian says that's what everyone told Bea about your mom. So he talks about the mom who they had the nickname for her Ray, like Ray of Sunshine. And then he says, you know, if he had known, he would have helped her. She died by suicide. Brian owns not seeing it. And then he acknowledges that Emil, in many facets of his life, has had to pay for his father's mistakes. So, you know, it ties everything in together. But really,
Yeah.
it's just... it's like watching a stage play.
Yeah.
That part for me, like it's just a really beautiful scene, and I think it's really smart for a director who has powerhouse actors like that to just get out of the way and be like, hey, want to do something cool that requires chops that we usually can't do in a movie like this?
Yeah.
Go. It was
And he
great.
does too,
So
right?
that's how I feel
He
about
kind
it.
of leaves that two shot a lot in the edit. He's not cutting into singles that too often. And it's
Yeah.
great. He does. He lets them just play off each other. And it seems like they had, I mean, also from interviews, but like it seems like they enjoy working with each other. You know what I mean? It seems like they had a really good relationship on set.
Yeah, it seems so. And it's nice to see. I don't know. I don't know. It's like the phrase like actors director, but it's nice when it can feel like a real collaboration
Yeah.
and knowing what everyone's strengths are and just like getting out of the way and letting people do what they do
Yeah,
best.
that's true. Yeah. And so it is. So it's nice. You get this really great scene where it's like these two guys are basically at the bottom of the bottom and they're opening up about, the truly what sort of like they've been holding on to and also just what they blame themselves for. And it's a cool moment.
And it's a breakthrough moment for Brian, you
Yeah.
know, because like it allows him to really put the pieces
Yeah.
together to figure out what he
Yeah.
needs to do.
They connect in a way that they haven't been able to before. And what I love about how it's written and how it's played is that I feel like in a lesser movie, it's vitriolic of like, you let her die. And like, this is just like what happened with mom and baby, you know, but it's so much more mature than
I agree.
that.
Yeah.
I think. And like, it's more nuanced than that. And I love that even when shit really hits the fan, and this is the point at which relationships in horror movies usually devolve, and people turn on each other, that they still have a bond. They're still father and son, and they've gone through this shared experience and like see each other, which I don't know. I think is really
I agree.
beautiful.
They did
I
a
love
really
this
good job with the scene.
Thank
I
you.
agree. And then of course, naturally,
Yeah.
they realize that they got to get back to the movie and the son's like, you know what? We should go back in there.
Yeah, because all the problems are happening. Like we have to
Right,
dig deep.
right.
We have to find out what's going on. She's hiding something.
Right.
So, all right,
and-
just to check
yeah,
in.
go.
I just want to check in really quickly. So, like I said before, I know what the big reveal is going to be. At this point, first time watching it, do you guys know at this point what the hidden secret is? Like, or do you have your theories on? Because I know, Joe, you were saying like, Joe. I guess Joe and Ryan, you both had like kind of the same thought: demonic possession, cursed object type of deal. But like at this point in the movie, like, were you asking like, what is this other hidden secret? Like, what was your mindset? What was like, yeah, where was your mind at?
I think I was probably still on demonic possession / like how to break.
okay.
Like I just thought of the body as like cursed by some kind of evil spirit. And I really thought the resolution was going to be, they had to figure out how to destroy the body in order to destroy whatever was causing everything else. So I didn't think of Jane Doe herself as being the evil, but something
interesting.
inside her being
That's
the
it.
evil.
And I don't remember what my initial reaction was to this. So I bet, but I'm betting it's probably something similar along those
Yeah,
lines.
I think I really stuck
do.
with it until they like got to where you're about to go, DT.
I do remember, though, that the phrasing of it's like there's something in there she doesn't want us to find was like, screw it. Like she's, that to me was sort of like the light bulb of like, oh, maybe she is in control and isn't just a conduit for whatever's going on.
Yeah,
they
really spoon feed you that line, right? Like, it's just like there's something deeper within.
I needed it. Throw me a bone. I don't know what's going on.
Here you go, open it up.
But it is like, it's kind of batshit too. Like sometimes you're not sure what the rules are because so much is happening. You know what I mean? So it is like, it's nice to have a little clue in.
Although, speaking, though, of dialogue that hits you over the head with a hammer, so Emil goes like, if we can figure out how she died, maybe we can figure out how to stop her. And I wrote in my notes, screenwriters, be better. Like, I don't know. Like, that's a hard line to sell, you know?
That's very true. That's very true. That is a hard line to sell.
But then it's okay because he's busy being distracted by his super dead girlfriend on the floor again.
Yeah.
And
well, it's
Brian,
good.
Like he did. Yeah.
I mean, it's good that he stopped.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if he had just run right over her, I would have been like, okay, now, come on.
Right. Yeah. But it's nice because like Brian covers her face with his jacket like he did with the cat.
They have a moment.
And they do, and it's shot like, you know, Emil on the floor and Brian tall behind them, which is kind of, you know, like the power dynamic and like, you know, looking at also the relationship of like father-son. And like, I also just really liked that shot.
Oh, but wait. So while they're doing this, the crematorium starts up on its own. Remember?
It sure does.
Oh, yeah,
the door to it
yeah.
bursts open and smoke just starts filling up the room and going into the hallway.
Does.
And we know that something bad is about to happen. And those two men stick to their plan and they march right into that smoke-filled hallway, expecting nothing to happen except make it to the door and and solve this problem.
Which is such
moment.
a sinister moment because, like, I think that's when you start realizing, like, to your point, Laura, right? Like, if you have kind of this mindset that, like Joe's take, right? This is like someone that's possessed, not really in control, something's like overtaking her, right? Up until that point, I think this part, you're starting to say like, okay, this is intentional, very much conscious, like something is going on. And you're going to see that literally in a few seconds of what's going on. Because, Ryan, what do they decide to do?
They decide to open up the brain. Okay, so let's jump to this because I have a question about this actually. A hypothetical question. But so they get kind of like beat up in the hallway, but they get their wits about them, and Emil helps his dad into the room. And while they were in the smoke, you kind of saw the outlines of like, you know, the other dead bodies, right? Like the faceless person kind of, I guess, I don't know what they were doing. Were they like punching them or like shivving them?
They're slashing at them, I think, with like claw type situation,
Yeah,
like nails.
Yeah, and so then,
well, I mean, not necessarily like claws, but you know, like what you'd think of as like a ghoul or a zombie.
But
or
like
whatever,
Brian comes into the room, he's got like a claw mark on his chest, right? That's from that scene, right?
So I think
you're
they're
right.
like slashing him with fingernails.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and so then they get into the room, and
I wonder, but like, I'm sorry. Tangent here. I wonder if, because like, there's a point in the movie I started to question how much of it is their own hallucinations, because I imagine that's some of their power as well, right? Because when the girlfriend walks in, I mean, they could have very easily, like, she could have said like, "Hey guys, I'm here," or they were like, yelling. They could have heard her, right? So my thing is like, obviously they were hallucinating at some point, but like,
when?
Was there actual physical attacks happening as well?
I think we're going to get
evidence of it.
We'll let Joe unveil his master theory plan when he gets back. But I think that you could argue for hours about the extent to which things happened or didn't happen, and I think we should leave it there until he gets there. But I think there's an entire spectrum that you could make arguments for.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes, that is what I think.
Wait, can I say when I think they start hallucinating?
No,
yes.
Thank you.
I think it's when the radio starts reporting that there's bad weather.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Totally, it
Yeah,
could be
because
that
literally
early.
at the end of it was just like it's been sunny 4 straight days. Yeah.
So but pause on that because I think we're just going to be able to sup on that like Jane on them.
No, yeah, right. Okay, so but let's get back to this brain because I have a question about the brain.
Right. Please.
Oh yeah.
What?
That's right.
Yeah, because Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, so they drill into the skull and they inspect the brain,
Yep.
and there's nothing wrong with the brain. They're like, oh, the brain is perfect. There's
It's a normal brain.
Normal
Yeah,
brain.
yeah,
Right.
And they pull a piece off and they put it on the microscope and they realize that her blood is still alive. And like that's one of the big surprises. She's been alive the whole time. Ah! My question is this: if they had pulled the brain out of her head, would this have all ended? No.
Would this
No.
what?
Would
I don't think
would
so.
like the hallucinations, would her control over the situation ended? Because pulling out the brain, like wouldn't the brain decompose and then stop her thinking?
Well, they didn't
Well,
pull
what
it. They
makes
put
you
it back.
think-
They
okay.
put the skull back. They just cut off a piece and they put the skull back.
Yeah, but I'm saying like if
Right,
they had
Ryan
pulled out
was
the
just
full,
saying, what
if
if?
they had pulled out the
Oh,
brain
what
and
if?
never like put it back in, like would that have changed anything? Do you think?
I am interested in the
Ooh.
affirmative answer to this. My knee jerk is no, because what's happening isn't physiologic.
No, that's a good
It's
point.
spooky, witchy stuff.
Spooky witchy
So,
stuff.
like, she's undergone all of this other stuff, and like, why would it be like, because the brain is just like an organ. Why not her heart or whatever? But because you asked this question, I am actually very interested. I am totally open to being.
But all right, cool. I want
convinced
to
otherwise
play
here.
around with that theory a little bit because like it was the one organ in her body that literally, to your point, Ryan, was normal.
Normal, and they left it in. It's one organ they didn't take out.
Yeah.
That's just-
So
That's true.
maybe that was the director's way of saying like they could have lived.
I should hunt down the writers. Maybe I can hunt down the writers on social
Yeah,
media and
writers,
ask them.
yeah,
'Cause I'd be
writers,
really curious.
writers.
I'm gonna posit that they were doomed. Like, if we buy into this actually happening and not just them,
Oh, yeah.
her just causing a hallucination, that was a train that was not gonna stop, because she's not looking for apology. She's looking to, or like, she's not looking for absolution or whatever. She's looking to punish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, with like the grudge thing, it's like that energy, that forward momentum of like, again, fuck around and find out. Like, she's not interested in being like unpacking, like, well, not everyone, and like things are better now and whatever. She's like, no, I'm just
Well,
no.
there was so I think there was a moment of compassion on her end when he makes a pact with her at the table, which is like, hey, I'll help you with anything that you want. Just leave him out of it.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And so
I think.
Well, we're right there, right?
No, go ahead.
we are, because we've got, so the only thing we have is like them kind of switching, like, so at that moment with the brain, Brian's in, and then Emil's like, no. And then they talk about what we've already mentioned, that like, oh, it's from like the cloth, they fold it over and it's Leviticus,
Right.
27,
Oh, yeah, that's when we
which
found
is
out, yeah.
basically like, right, it's from 1693, and basically the passage is fuck them witches. And so they're like, oh my God, Salem. And, so now they're like, back to not denying. And they're like, oh, just,
They
just
both,
girls.
yeah.
So we've talked about all of this,
Yeah.
but you're right. So now we are at the point where it won't stop until, and so then, while Emil goes to check on whatever it is, Brian petitions
the door is like shaking.
Jane.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, please spare him. Now, I'm interested too, DT, that you brought up earlier that like people have a creepy read on this, because I read it as a total like pieta, like, please, I'm entreating you, like pure, but you've said,
yeah, like there was like a couple comments because it's how he and like the shot, right? It's almost like he like hovers over her, right? Like face to face, and like asks her, basically makes his pact with her. Like, I don't know, it was just like one of the moments that like I guess based on the shot it looked a little creepy. I didn't necessarily mind it, but I know people kind of like mentioned that in their
and that would be an interesting thing to read into, like, of a power dynamic there, if you read to that, even like if he's like asserting control there. I didn't see it that way, but like that is an interesting read. I will note again, me back on my color bullshit. We've got a lot of close-ups on faces going back and forth when he's asking for this, and he's kind of orangish and she's blue. But okay, but yeah, so to your point then, his wrists and ankles break, and her mouth, we can't see her cute little teeth anymore because it's closed, and she is smiling.
Yep.
And as she's smiling, the blood from the ritual-looking drain thing is going back into her body, and maybe we can talk, one of you wants to talk about what happens as the he's taken on what's happening.
I was also going to say too,
Yeah.
real quick, the camera angles have switched too. But so before, like, because they do a lot of straight on shots with her face. And so it's kind of evolved through the whole movie. But at this point, it's like she's been very full faced, open eyed, that sort of thing. And now it's kind of like it's a little bit down where the eyebrows are a little over her eyes just a little bit. And she's still staring up, but it's just given her this a little more like in control, evil look to her that just hasn't been there the whole movie. So it's like they did a good job with the cinematography on her face of just giving her personality, even though she's a dead body. So they did a good job there.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry, DT, I interrupted you.
No, yeah. So he starts experiencing everything that she experienced as she was getting tortured. The stabbing, the broken ankles, the broken wrists,
Smoke inhalation.
also smoking. Yeah. And it's way too much for him to handle. He falls to the floor. His son comes to his aid, and he points to the knife.
So wait, real quick, what's everyone's reading of the situation? Because I'll just say mine first off, and then whatever.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm completely wrong, but could he have saved his son in this moment?
I think he could have. I do. I personally do. Like, here's the thing. I think she made. I mean, like, how evil do we think she is, right? Do we think she's a victim of circumstance, or do we think she is, like, purely evil? Or is it a combination of both, And I think you can make an argument for either route. But, like, for me, I think, because, like, one thing that I know about a lot of these, like, ritualistic things, you're kind of bound to a contract. Not that, like, I know a lot about rituals, but it seems like every horror movie or... I know, right? That sounds... I know. Hey, guys! No. But it just seems like in a lot of horror movie, like, people are bound by a contract, right? And I think they have to contract until his son Mercy killed him. So I believe.
Yeah,
that was it. No,
Please.
But you believe. I want a clean line. You believe what?
I believe. No, I do believe he could have saved his son if he had honored the contract.
Yeah, I 100% buy that. I think, and I know what I said before about, like, their fate was written. However, if you go back to what I mentioned, that, like, body is text thing, like, she's looking, I think, for revenge, but also looking to be seen and have her pain acknowledged. And he has now done that, and he's still going to take it on. He's not trying to, get out of it for both of them. He's still completely accepted the punishment she's going to dole out. And I think just given that his wrists and ankles start breaking immediately, that to me signals she's listening. She says, okay, but then the question is not the word fault is kind of heavy, but like, because Brian does end up, like, the pain is too much and he says, please. So is it on him for, like, having a moment to save his son and then, like, reneging on it? Or is it that Emil makes the choice, and would he have done it would he have mercy killed his dad anyway? Yeah. And I also stepped in before Ryan could weigh in on what he thinks. So feel free to take it from there.
No, I think the dad, told her that he would take her place basically if she would save his son, and then he starts taking on all of her pain, and he can't handle it. And I think he bows out before it's a done deal.
And I think a part of her knew that, like, he wouldn't be able to handle what she endured. Yeah. And I can think that kind of speaks more about, like, her power and just who she is as just this kind of force of nature. Because, her eyes start clearing up. They go from gray to brown.
Yes.
Even her skin started to, like, you started seeing texture on her skin, right? Like,
yes.
It wasn't as porcelain as it was before. Like, there's some life there. I think he could have saved his son, but she probably went into the contract knowing that he wouldn't be able to endure what she did. And so therefore the contract was off. And, and so the son had to die. And what was interesting, like, I guess we're kind of going to that. The son runs out, or somebody called. We think
Sheriff Burke.
Was Sheriff Burke? Yeah, is calling for him.
Right before that happens. I have two things really quick.
Okay, gotcha.
One Ryan is gonna love because it's gonna date this podcast within an inch of its life. But I'm gonna say, like, the question of, can he handle it? Has anybody seen Barbie? And the question of, like, in general, like, can this dude bear this woman's pain and, like, the world that she's lived in and like that. So, like, I think there's like a gendered thing to explore there. Also, go see Barbie.
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah.
I feel like I'm the only person who hasn't seen Barbie at this point.
No, I'm
well,
seeing
you
Barbie
also
next
have
week.
like
Yeah, that's true.
you have like little minions
true.
under 5.
I got
but
kids.
but also hey, guess what? When Emil is wearing gloves and he does like this mercy killing, guess what color the gloves are?
Are they blue?
They're blue.
Oh my god, Laura, I think your color theory checks out.
Wow. I know.
I'm not even done. I still have 1 or 2 more before we're done with my color bullshit.
Okay.
But okay, so please no. So back to let's
so
come on.
he
They
hears
got the sheriff. Okay, go ahead.
calling him, and so he goes and he's pushing on the door that this sycamore tree had landed on. He's like, push hard. He's like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And all of a sudden, the sheriff does something weird. He starts singing a song. Ryan, do you want to sing that song for us?
How's it go? May the sunshine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine.
That was the creepiest freaking moment.
It was
got me.
so good, like the screaming and going
Yeah.
into like a big like chest voice. Ugh.
Yeah.
I
So
love it.
he
I throw up.
basically
It's so
hears
good.
that, comes off the ladder, backs up in disbelief, hears the bell
Looks
again.
over the railing.
The bell looks over the railing, doesn't see anything, looks back, and then he sees.
His dead dad. Oh.
And I think that's the only time. Well, no, never mind. I was gonna say that's the only time that we see like one of the dead characters. But then we see the lady with the
Hey, Emma.
sewn up.
Because guess what? Oh, her too. That's right. But guess what?
Yeah.
Emma's wearing a blue skirt, and when Emil is trying, stop! Wait! And Emil, when he's trying to open the storm doors, he's not wearing the flannel anymore. The shirt underneath is blue.
Damn.
And also, I know. So right, he saw spooky dad. Did we say what happens to him afterwards? I was ready because I was so excited about my colors.
Bring
Did
it
we
on.
say what happens after
Oh, he
sees
dies.
spooky dad?
He falls
Yes,
off
he-
the edge.
He does. And I know, rip. So then I wrote next in my notes, hey, sheriff, way to get in on time. So there's a shattered mirror. Guys, there is blue everywhere. I wrote the word blue 4 times. And guess what? When we see Brian with his scalpel, do you know what color the handle is?
Blue.
Yes!
Dabba dee dabba da, dabba dee dabba da, dabba dee dabba da, dabba
Yes!
dee. All right.
Yes!
Blue is
And-
the color.
Okay. Yeah, I've got one more.
Oh, you got one more? Go.
That's right. I do. Okay. So help me with this because I don't need to do this by myself. But like, so the police are inspecting everything now, because they're inside. So the photos, as we talked about, are all burned. The camcorder that they were using to record the autopsy has been burned.
Destroyed.
The zombie body people are back in their drawers like nothing happened. I wrote in all caps blue light. Oh, I think because now that the father and son are dead, the morgue is now lit in a way that you would expect. And we're focusing on the blue tile instead. So it's like cold, it's clinical because it's no longer a home. And also that we see that we hadn't seen before when the police are like, get her out of my county, like take her somewhere else. There are blue chairs in the morgue too. So we're just doing blue on blue. And then, okay, so then I'm going to keep talking, but please come in because that's it with the colors. But so, okay, so then we have, I wrote
Send us home.
Yes, Jane Doe is smiling because she's mean AF is what I wrote. And so then they're taking her away and she's covered back up. And I don't know what this means if anyone has any ideas, but when she's covered back up, that is the first full nude shot that we see of her. That is the first time we've seen her complete naked body in one shot. I don't know if there's anything to talk about there, but I'm just noting it. So then the bodies are taken outside. And what happens? So this new like young cop is driving along, transporting Jane Doe's body. And then what happens? He's like talking on the radio, or I think, or like to a colleague, and then who wants to do our little? I think it's got to be DT because of
so
what
at the
we end
very
on.
end, I think we hear the music again,
Yep.
right?
We do.
Let
She
the
changed it to
sunshine in.
let's.
Yeah, let the sunshine in. And this is probably one of the most like fascinating parts, which kind of sums up like this whole thing about her literally regaining her power again, is that this is the first time at the very end we literally, the camera's coming back, we see her toes, and we literally see one of them move.
Mm-hmm.
Beep,
And
boop,
it's
beep, boop.
And you hear the bell.
it's so good. We did.
Oh, the bell! The bells!
He can hear
Yes, the bells.
Guys,
But,
Yes.
but like, you know what? It was so fascinating because the thing is, it was the first time she moved, and I'm like, oh, we have to see a prequel to this, and I would love to see a sequel. Even it'll probably be like straight to DVD type of sequel with a different cast, but it'll still be interesting.
that would be.
But anyway,
do you think they would stick to like one location again?
I feel like you have to.
I mean, if
Maybe.
they did a sequel, it would be a completely different
Yeah.
cast. And it would not. I don't know if the original Jane Doe would be in it. I don't know. It might be terrible. I like sequels like this. I think this was a prequel would be great, but a sequel, I don't
Every
think would
now
work.
and then, man, you get a really good sequel. Like I was saying, same year came out with Ouija, Origin of Evil,
Oh, okay.
or
Yeah.
Annabelle
I
Creation.
think you
That was a
could
great
do
sequel too.
a prequel,
Yeah,
but
that
like it
was
would
a
have
great
to be a
sequel.
different style.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a great sequel.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so I don't know if we have Joe back yet or not, but I want to get into talking about how much of what we just saw do we think happened?
No, that's a
and
really
I
good
think
question,
that was
right?
Joe's big thing. Do we want to take a bio break if we don't
We
have?
have lost
no,
him.
wait, no. I think that key, like you used the phrase DT made her, and I think that's exactly, she's a victim of circumstance, and so like she's I think neither good nor evil. She's what she has been made to be, and I think yes, it is like a nihilistic film. However, it gives us more hope than we often, I think, would get in something like this. And I'm all about a bleak ending with nothing there, but I think the life preserver that we are thrown is the fact, if you buy into the fact that she would have maybe let Emile Hirsch go, that there is a way to stop it, that it's like bearing witness to pain is important, and then like you can maybe save other people, and who knows, maybe that's like baby steps, and it's like, therapy is expensive, so instead just have people perform an autopsy on you and maybe like get at what happened to you.
That's where I see it's even more
But,
depressing,
sorry, you were
because the
gonna
dad
say.
has his chance to save his son and he can't bear the pain, and I'm just like, oh God damn.
That probably hits hard as a parent.
Yeah, it does hit hard. It does hit hard as a parent.
Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I honestly wish I can go back in time and just block out the conversation of this movie being ruined for me before seeing it. But even with knowing what was going to happen, I thought the direction was really solid. I thought the writing had some very solid moments. And to Joe's point, it's a linear horror movie, and I thought they nailed it. They nailed that aspect of it, and so very, very enjoyable to watch. And I would highly recommend seeing it multiple times because you're literally picking up pieces, new pieces, as you watch it again and again.
I agree. I totally agree. I think it's a fantastic rewatch, 100%.
So, okay, I'm going back to my salt rubbing. So to rub salt into that wound of like Brian Cox's tragic fall, not only has this happened, but he is aware that his son has been paying for his mistakes and will continue to do so even as his last act. Yay, we love it.
European. It's so just like,
I love it.
keep stabbing you. Keep stabbing you.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Injected in my veins. That's my favorite. So okay, but so when Joe gets back here, we'll get his take on it. But So do you think,
Yeah.
I mean, I think, so I want to hear, you were pretty confident in your theory that the hallucinations begin when they say that the weather is getting worse. So talk to me about
because
what you
I
think really happened.
I'd
and
be
where,
really
like,
curious to know. Like, I'd love to see like an alt version of this movie where the director just shows you what's going on, because there's like a really like hilarious image in my mind where they're just like sitting in chairs, just like in the Matrix, like, you know, seeing all this stuff happen, and then they just like, right, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But then also, like, I guess there's also a really funny version where they're like running around stabbing the air and, like, you know what I mean? Like being chased by nothing. I don't know. It's funny. So I'd be curious to know, I guess, when the writers first wrote this, what they were envisioning too, because every instance where I imagine none of the stuff actually happening physically in the real world strikes a hilarious image of my head of two grown men just running around screaming, and you know what I mean, by themselves, and not understanding like
It
what's
would be
going on.
funny to watch. And yet, what I think is so delicious is that you can choose. I think there are a number of places where you could make the argument, like, this is when it starts. But literally, if it's nothing, they start to make the first incision, and she's like, you know, like a deadly like flower frog or whatever, and is like, nope, like, here's my like scare toxin, whatever. That like. That's also fucking terrifying. It gives me Oculus, which I also love. You know, like where you can't trust what's real, and she'll show you whatever you need to see, and you're going to be in trouble either way. So like, obviously, if it's straight up supernatural, we take it literally as it happened. That's really scary. And if it really is just them sitting in a room and they stab each other and like stab Emma, Emily, whatever, like, that's also really, really scary, and she gets her vengeance either way. So in a way, it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's true.
Question mark?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter, because it's like they
know.
are kind of like dead from the start. In a way, you know what I mean? Like it's never getting out.
Yes.
I've been here the whole time.
Joe, we want to see your master theory. We've been waiting for you.
Oh, all right. It's just something I mentioned to you earlier, Laura, before we started the podcast. Is did the girlfriend Emma, right? Is it Emma or Emily?
Yeah, Emma. It's Emma. I'm sorry.
Emma. Did Emma actually die? Or has this whole thing been in their heads the entire time, right? Because, you know, we have the scare at the end where Brian shows up and scares Emil Hirsch, and he falls, and that's how he dies, right? I guess my thing is with Jane Doe, she goes after everyone that has like done something with her body, right? So that obviously eliminates Emil Hirsch. It eliminates Tommy, the father. It eliminates the old couple that dug her up and presumably probably removed the salt around her grave or whatever it was. Probably also, I believe the other man in that house that died was, I think he was like the groundskeeper or something like that, or he was doing something around the grounds. So maybe he was doing the actual digging. So they owned the property. He maybe disturbed the body. Emma really didn't do anything to Jane Doe. So I guess for me, it tracks. And I know it was Brian that killed her, but I guess for me, it tracks that maybe she didn't actually die, and that was just a hallucination by those two. Because in the end, when the sheriff shows up, there's no tree across the cellar doors, right? It's very easy for him to get into the place. Everything was hallucinated. The storm was hallucinated. It's been sunny for 4 days. We learned that when the body is being transported away and the radio plays, right before the toe wiggles, the ambulance driver is listening to the radio, and it's been sunny, clear skies for the last 4 days. And also the sheriff, when he goes down to the basement, makes no mention of finding Emma's body. It's very much like just kind of, you got what the hell happened with Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox, but I don't think they want to get this weird Jane Doe body out of his county, send him to whatever county he's going to send him to, but they don't say anything about they don't say anything about finding the girlfriend. And so I could be completely wrong, because you're right. There is the initial ding of the elevator, which perhaps is her coming down to surprise them, right? going way back to the middle of the film that we've already discussed. So maybe she really did come down to surprise them because she's not part of the hallucination. So presumably everything would be working for her, right? It'd be easy for her to get into the building, easy for her to go down to the basement. But I guess for me, just like at the end, since everything else was kind of in their heads and she really didn't have a role to play with defiling Jane Doe, I don't know, maybe I was just trying to make it a happy moment for me because I don't think that girl deserved to die. But I thought maybe it was a hallucination and she didn't actually die. That's true. Well, she did. Yeah.
But her accent, though.
That was problematic.
No, Joe, I really like that theory. And I don't know if, like, Brian and I were talking about where we agree on the hallucination aspect, but it didn't even occur to me really that she might not be part of it. However, when you frame it that way, I'm totally willing to accept that.
I've been
as
leaning
a possibility.
forward this entire time and saying, linear horror movie face value. So probably she died because that cuts against everything I've been saying on everything else. But for that one aspect, yeah, I mean, if there's one fun aspect fan theory that maybe I would buy into, it's that perhaps she's not actually dead, because I just think it would be mentioned at the end of the movie when they're bringing up like Jane Doe's body and everything else. Like they don't say anything about finding her. I don't know.
Right, and we don't see her. Yeah, right. Like we don't see her
right.
outside among the other bodies. That's a good point.
You don't, Joe. You see, because they put her in the car and they wheel out 2 body bags. They don't wheel out 3.
Yeah. Did I get one?
I think you got one, Joe.
Woo! All right.
That was good.
Chalk
that was
that
good.
one up for the good guys.
Dang.
So that was my only contribution.
Because I was going to say,
good. It was good.
No, it is good because I was trying to think of like when he's reviewing the crime scene, does he see her at all? But well, maybe. But the thing is like they don't show her. They don't show her in the end with the dead bodies.
I like it. Listeners, do you buy
seriously.
it? What do you
Joe,
think?
God bless Joe.
Well, but I think the way that if that is actually what they intended, I think the way to look at it is she's the only one that really didn't interact with the body or do anything to it, because
you're right.
Because that was my thing with, I know we talked about it way long ago, but like the old couple in the beginning and the handyman, I just assumed maybe they were doing like a basement renovation or something, and they disturbed whatever sacred salting had been done to the earth or whatever, or however that is that, because everyone that removed
Poke her
barrier
in the chest with a shovel.
Like everyone that removed a barrier to her being able to be a witch gets punished for it as she's getting stronger, as maybe she draws her life force from them or whatever she's doing, right? But but the girlfriend didn't do anything, so
I like it.
I like it too.
I like it.
Leave it to Joe just to swoop in with that little.
Yeah. Well,
Good job, bud.
On that note.
Yeah. Do we have anything else to say?
That was my one big contribution.
Laura, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, just I've watched it a bunch of times. I will probably after this watch it again, to see incorporate some of these theories into my headcanon, see what happens. I love it when we have quote unquote serious actors in these films. I love to see more of it. I love single location. I love isolation horror. It's checking a lot of my boxes. And I just really, I think that horror is so much more effective for me when there are stakes and you're invested in the characters. And I think this film does a great job of that. So definitely worth a watch. And I would say also with the proper caveats, also accessible for people who aren't really horror people. If they're, if they're prepped in the right way.
Yeah,
I agree.
So yeah, I like it. I'm good. It's good. I don't have socials, but you can, find me roaming about on the moors on a moonless night. So come say hi.
Well, Terrors of Tubi does have socials, and you can find us at Terrors of Tubi on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And probably Threads soon, too. I don't know. We'll see. I got to catch up with all this stuff. Oh, and TikTok. We have TikTok, too, as well. but we haven't posted anything yet. We will soon. Anyway, we also link to show notes and anything we mentioned, any sort of references in below in the show notes as far as interviews go and as far as any of the research we did. So you can check up and follow up on our notes too if you need to while listening to this. And that is that. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Have a good one.
Yep. Till next time, stay terrified, y'all.